Welcome back. We will continue from where we left off, and we will start with our public defender, Ray Buenaventura. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to all the board members. Thank you for having me here today. It really is an honor to appear in front of you and talk about some of the things my office has done in the first 90 days. I thought it'd be important to start on the governing principles that I'm operating under. And essentially it comes down to two basic principles. One is the Sixth Amendment report. I'm mindful of some of the criticisms and some of the recommendations that report outlines. The second is this holistic approach model to indigent criminal defense. It's a model that we have all talked about, and I've shared with you my vision for it. And it's a model that I think we can absolutely implement here in Lake County. It is a model that I think will address the issue of recidivism, as the chair pointed out. And I thought that the point you made in the discussion you had and your concern about what recidivism looks like and what it means, I actually looked up the definition during the lunch hour, and I found a definition from the National Institute of Justice, which defines recidivism as either rearrest, reconviction, or return to prison. So in line with this holistic approach, my office has a mission statement that we have published. Among the several sentences in the mission statement, it does say, to provide a more holistic approach to representation, one that focuses on programs to help clients succeed well beyond the disposition of their criminal case. We also mentioned that we aspire to provide the highest level of legal advocacy for each of our clients to be a nationwide model for the delivery of indigent defense services. And just a brief history of how we got here. I was appointed as the Chief Public Defender on October 16th, 2023. I have an office on the third floor. Some of you have already visited me, and it's room 328. It has limited space. At most, I think I could fit 3, maybe 4 people in there. Oh, I'm sorry. We have some computer system there. We have some laptops. We have a printer, scanner, and copier. And just for technology purposes, we do have a public defender website. It's tied with the county website. We have a podcast, a Facebook page that's under construction. And so that's basically what the office looks like. We are here, we're on the third floor, and I'm the only one in it for now. One of the things that I talked about when I started was the need to, in the beginning, to outreach to the community. I talked about how I would be going on a listening tour and visiting with folks one-on-one, individually, and as a group. I can tell you that I have met with all the lit attorneys. I have met with all the judges, both individually and collectively. I met with District Attorney Susan Crones, and we had, I thought, was a very productive and good meeting. There are some things that I think we are closely aligned on and that we can work together. I also met with the law enforcement personnel from Sheriff Howe to the chiefs of police. That also was a very good discussion. One of the things that they outlined and complained about, which is exactly what the Sixth Amendment report said, was that the attorneys not being prepared and some of the things that they wish would happen. For example, they talked about the issue of preliminary hearings. If hearings don't go, they would like to get a heads up so that they don't waste officers' time in coming to court. That's wasting resources and also impacts public safety. So if the attorneys, and this is coming from them, were better prepared, perhaps we would be more efficient and we would have a system that allows for some inefficiencies to be cured. I also met with the Director of Social Services, Crystal Markjian, Elise Jones, Behavioral Health, Patrick Sullivan, the Treasurer, Brock Falkenberg, the superintendent of the schools, and actually I was at a meeting where 6 of his superintendents were there, and I made a presentation, and that was also well received. Also, I've been going to these group meetings. I went to the judges' breakfast, I went to the Middletown Town Hall, I went to Supervisor Crandall's Town Hall, I've been a guest speaker at the Democratic Central Committee, I've done public service announcements, I wrote an editorial to the paper. I'm scheduled to be interviewed by Joyce Adams on February 2nd. I did an interview with Olga Steele. I'm meeting with the grand jury this Thursday, the 25th. I met with the dean of Empire College, and that was actually a discussion that I'd like to tell you a little bit about. They were very receptive, Empire College of Law, to the idea of developing a pipeline and doing an internship program here in Lake County. I thought our discussions it seemed like we were opening a door through their students and hopefully to their lawyers, future lawyers. I've even discussed with them the possibility that I would teach a death penalty class this summer. And so that's, I think, going to be in the works. I'm going to hopefully start that over the summer. So 3 key policy objectives I'd like to talk to you about since starting this office focuses on 3 things. 1, early representation, 2, expungement relief, and 3, the Miranda duty. So this early representation model, I think, is very important. And what it involves, so one of the criticisms of the 6th Amendment report was that clients were showing up in court, they didn't know what was going on, they were confused. It was the first time they would see their lawyer when the court appoints them a lawyer, and it happened so fast. It was so rushed. So I have always been a fan of this early representation model. And what it is that we have contact with the client before they get to court, before they're appointed a lawyer. So procedurally, how it works is I get a list every morning of the people who are going to be arraigned in court. And what I do is I run that list, I run it through the court system, I look up their cases, see what they're charged with, what they're facing, I print it out, and then I go to the jail. And I want to thank the Sheriff's Office, Captain Polish in particular, for making that transition for me to interview clients seamless. I'm there, they know that I'm coming. I don't even have to print a list of the people I need to see because they know I'm going to see everybody on that list. And so they just basically say the usual, and I say yes. And then they call who they need to call. I show up in the interview room, and they line my clients up one by one. So during that interview process, I get the critical information that is needed for the arraignment attorneys to know about. One of the things that is always addressed in the arraignment is the custody status, and whether or not they should be released on their own recognizance, or whether or not some bail should be posted. Key to that decision is their income, their financial ability under the Humphreys case, some other circumstances, and including if their failures to appear record. One of the benefits of this early representation is we can tell the lawyers, look, this guy failed to appear because his car broke down, he didn't have a phone, he tried to hitchhike. Giving that information to the judge is critical in the judge deciding whether or not to release someone and whether or not it is a reasonable excuse. Also during this time, during this initial interview, mind you, I haven't been appointed yet, no attorneys have been appointed yet, but we're getting the information to give to the arraignment attorneys about this person, their job, their family, their employer, their history, what programs they've been doing, and even getting their side of the story about what happened in their criminal case. Because things like discovery, a video camera or a video of the incident could be there. And if you don't get that sometimes within 60 to 90 days, it's gone. So early investigation can be done. There's a lot to be done in the beginning stage, not only to prepare the case for the next attorney, but to also establish that relationship with the client so that when the client knows or goes into court, he knows something. And I'll give you my spiel when I talk to my clients at the jail. I say, look, I'm not going to be your attorney, but I'm going to try to make this transition from jail to court a little bit easier for you and the attorney. So I'm just going to ask some preliminary information from you so I can tell them what's going on with you, what's going on with your life, who they can contact in your family, some good information about your history, things like that. And so I think that model, and studies have shown, if you get to people early, if you try to make a difference in the collateral consequences they may face, you do have an effect on the recidivism rate. So that's one of the goals that we're trying to do, and we're getting ramped up to do even more. Because later, what I foresee is a model that doesn't just involve the attorney. It involves law clerks, paralegals, social workers, navigators, and investigators. By the way, I've been doing a lot of this public outreach, as I've said. Because of the public outreach has been positive, I have a volunteer, former Lake County probation officer, who's going to be coming on my staff as a volunteer to do these interviews. And I want to thank the sheriff and their staff for helping me coordinate. They're going to, fingerprint, background checker, and everything. But this is the kind of community holistic approach that I think is available and ripe here in Lake County.
Mr. Buenaventura,
Yeah.
I am absolutely engaged in the conversation that we're having here, but I want to be mindful of the time that we have left for all the other departments.
Okay.
And if we can go through the rest of the presentation, please.
Let me just go to the expungement relief. So expungement relief, maybe you've heard some of the PSAs that I've had on the radio. Just the other day, I got 20 calls asking for expungement help. 20 calls. I have 20 new clients that I'm filing petitions for expungement because of the PSAs, the public service announcement, and the letting people know what to do. And by the way, you can also do that online at the Public Defender's website. There's a link you can click, and it'll take you to the intake form that we have to get people's public records expunged. Miranda duty, that's the third option. So there has never been a Miranda duty attorney in Lake County, never. And that's not lawful, especially when it comes to juvenile offenders. You cannot even question a juvenile offender unless there's a lawyer there. And also, in talking to the law enforcement, there are times when a person will assert their Miranda rights. And if they assert it, all questioning is actually stopped, and they don't get an attorney to come in because there isn't one available. But sometimes the case can be resolved if there was just an attorney there in helping, assisting. Sometimes maybe the case is dismissed or they don't pursue prosecution if there was an attorney there. You now have a full-time Miranda duty attorney on call, and it's me. The other thing I want to talk about is developing a case management system. So we are in the process of developing one. There's a lot of statistics and a lot of data that I'm gathering in that system, which includes the caseloads, the outcomes, the jury trials, the motions filed, the dismissals, investigation conducted, immigration consequences, interpreters used, sentencing outcomes, diversionary programs, complaints, jail visits, fail to appear, conflicts check, and prior recidivism. Just a bit also on the LID program. The LID program, I established, I think in the first 2 weeks, a complaint system for the LID program. If an attorney gets a complaint, I'm notified about it immediately. They send me a log, they send me the name of the case, the attorney, and any action that's being taken. LID actually has a mandatory reporting requirement of their caseloads and other statistics that's in the contract. They've never complied in terms of giving that information, and now I've opened that discussion with them, and they send me monthly reports of their caseloads. Also, with respect to regular monitoring of the attorney performance, I'm often there in court watching the attorneys, giving feedback, providing some help. And so that's, hopefully I said everything I needed to say, but you're welcome to ask me any questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Supervisor Green.
No, just very excited. And we are in this particular mode of doing our governance workshop, but we look forward very much to longer presentations along the way as we expect as your office develops. The early involvement just speaks volumes, only just because I've been doing a little court watching, and arraignment can get kind of bumpy. It's like this group effort, like, okay, we're just talking custody status now, please don't plead your whole case. Early involvement and having somebody coach them through what's going to happen at arraignment and what's going to happen later down the road is just critical, and it's really going to certainly help those clients and receive adequate defense services, but it's also helpful for prosecutors and judges that are dealing with this workflow. So very excited to hear all this stuff. You know, we'll get through the metrics later, but I'm just very pleased about the vision that you've had, the engagement with the community, and the first baby steps you've taken. They're very exciting.
Thank you.
Anyone else have comments or questions? Appreciate the work you've done thus far. Oh, you just don't have a pen yet.
Yeah. Do we have a date for when you're going to be bringing your work plan back to the
Yes,
board?
February 6th, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate everything you've done thus far. The idea of building that data collection, whether it's a database that you're building, that someone else is building for us, or we're able to find the software that communicates with the courts, leads me to believe that we'll be able to access all kinds of data as long as we are able to build a query for it. So I'm excited that that's happening, because that means the data will be available in some way, shape, or form, and then eventually we'll see it as we need over the course of years to see the differences that we're making in comparison to where we're starting from. So
Absolutely.
appreciate your presentation today, and I don't know if there'll be any public comments, but again, on the hour, every hour, I will open it up for public comment.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Public Services, Lars Ewing. Thank you for your patience today.
All right, I will be brief. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director, presenting today on county buildings, county parks, recreation and trails, solid waste, recycling, landfill, and museums. And I think I have control of this.
There you go.
So accomplishments from 2023, just a few highlights. Maintenance, repairs, and improvements at a variety of county-owned infrastructure, plus operations at the landfill and museum, so that kind of highlights the ongoing efforts. Project delivery is the second bullet point there. That ranges from routine work orders, like a toilet being down, to projects that multi-million-dollar projects. So it's project delivery is the emphasis there. We do have some staff changes that are going to require and have required going more towards a contract staff, contract management approach to augment our staff. So that's underway. Third bullet point there emphasizes some of the grants that we have either secured ourselves or are working with other departments. Really, I want to applaud the other departments for the facilities-specific grants, libraries, behavioral health, EOC, and museums for that matter, which is internal to my department, but to just applaud those other departments for those grants. They have done a wonderful job. Museums and parks also have been successful with grants, so pretty happy that we're getting money from outside coming in. Last bullet point there is from an accomplishment is the first ever capital improvement plan for facilities. Really just sets the foundation for our focus of project delivery. Looking ahead, or at least we are already in 2024, some points of emphasis for parks, recreation, and trails. First bullet point there is the master plan implementation. That's going to be wrapping up here in the next probably 4 to 6 months. Some examples that we're going to see out of that, just an emphasis on recreation and park activation. Building on the bookmobile example, there's a recommendation for a possible recmobile, that we go to the different parks or different areas to bring recreation to the public. We can provide parks, but it's something else to provide recreation programs. A few parks that I wanted to highlight there that are new parks coming up potentially. John T. Klaus Park was a trust that was provided to the county, and so we're working on that. Cobb Park, the acquisition for that will be coming to the board here in the next few weeks. So we're moving ahead there. Moving ahead to facilities, pursuing facilities grants. I referenced earlier that a lot of the other departments have been successful with that. Facilities grants are oftentimes hard to come by, and so it's helpful to continue to pursue those. Maintenance and repair being a top priority. That needs to be our top priority. Otherwise, we're letting our infrastructure fail. A few highlights of capital projects: courthouse parking lot solar design build that is underway. The board just approved that within the last few weeks. The Armory to Sheriff's Office, it says design and build. We are in the kind of the preliminary design phase, and so we're looking forward to moving ahead on that. Funding is going to be an issue with that, so that's that just it's not a shocker to anyone, but make sure that we're stating that. Kelseyville Senior Center, making sure that we fast track that. ARPA funds there that we want to be underway before the end of the year. Courthouse, that is a misprint. It's not Havoc. I hope it's not a Havoc project. It's Courthouse HVAC. So looking at the heating and air conditioning system-wide for this building. And then last on there is the behavioral health expansion. We're nearing the end of design for that, working with behavioral health. And again, Elise has been, and her staff have been successful at securing funding so far, and looks optimistic for future funding for construction. Moving ahead with solid waste and recycling, landfill expansion construction was awarded this month, so we'll be pursuing that, starting construction in the next month or so. We'll be pursuing a gas to energy project, looking at not just flaring the methane, but potentially turning it back into energy. It's not a new technology, but it will be new to us if the numbers are right. And then lastly, beverage container pilot program. That's really a local solution to a statewide and state problem. So we're stepping in along with Mendocino County, partnering with them on a program to provide beverage container locations or beverage container recycling locations around the county. Museums, the thing to emphasize there is that we have a new museum curator. Clark Maccabee retired at the end of the calendar year, and so we have Carolyn Barilli as the new curator, so she'll be stepping in and leading that. Really, activation of museums is a big thing, similar to parks and recreation, but how do we use our museums? And they already do this quite a bit, but how can we do it more? And that is, what programs can we offer at the museums? Countywide Museums Master Plan, similar to the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan, pursuit of a master plan that will guide our efforts over the next 5 to 20 years even. Where do we want to take our museums? And then last on there is a Heritage Commission. There is a Heritage Commission on paper, but we're looking to make that, put it in place really for historical records and also cultural and historical sites. So that'll be a big push there. To look at some of the metrics, I'm not going to read all of them, but they're broken down into the 4 main divisions that I have, and happy to talk about any of these or answer any questions that you have for me. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? I am not seeing any, and I'm wrong.
Just a quick thank you. Not a bullet point, but the North Lakeport shelter has taken quite a bit of staff time, and you have been great, and your staff have been great, and you've just kind of shouldered that extra burden without complaint. And I don't know that everyone could shoulder that without complaint as successfully as you and your department have. So I just want to highlight that. It's not a data point. It's just a point of gratitude.
Well, I appreciate that. And there are 40 or 50 capital projects that we have on our project tracker. So by no means would we be able to go through all of them. I don't think anyone in the audience would appreciate that. But some of the highlights are up there. But yeah, there's a whole lot more that we're doing, not just on the capital projects, but the work that the facility staff, that the park staff, that the landfill staff, and the museum staff do on a day-to-day basis is tremendous. And so I want to give them the credit.
Thank you for that. Quick question for you. Do you track the use permits for events at parks?
We do, we
Okay.
do, and that, yeah,
I
that,
think that would be useful to know the participation of nonprofit groups in utilizing our parks, just to see if we're getting an increase or a decrease, and maybe changes that might be needed to make it more attractive for those to use it, because I think that highlights our parks more than we can do it, because we're busy fixing the parks, maintaining the parks, and doing other stuff. Others have the ability to provide the entertainment and the events that occur.
yeah, well, and for just a point of clarity on my answer of yes, the second bullet point up there was total number of park permits and reservations. That's really on a birthday party basis, but use permits, what you're getting at is quite a bit different. So we can, yeah, absolutely, we can separate that out from a kind of a residential party to a public event, and we can track that.
Appreciate that. And I'm actually going to make a request of my colleagues. We do have some openings on the Heritage Commission, and I know that one of the facilities that I get a lot of words about is the Lower Lake Schoolhouse, but I don't believe it's been designated as a historic landmark. I think that the Heritage Commission has the ability to create those things that then, if we designate specific buildings to be historical, then it might give us access to some grant funding to be able, or greater levels of grant funding to be able to take care of some of the issues that remain in some of those buildings. So if we could try to fill in those seats, I think you have 3 out of the 7. And that way that commission can start on its work to create the ordinance that would allow us to designate such.
Yep, and it's in concert with community development as well. They're a key player in this, and that's really to emphasize Clark Maccabee, the retired curator. This was really an emphasis of his, and it's a shame that he's not here. But he really saw the benefit of that, and he has he's a bright man. So I think we should take his input, and I appreciate your comments here about filling those seats.
Well, let's take what he started and let's push it through the finish line.
Real quick follow-up, are those at-large seats or district seats?
I believe there is an at-large. It might be filled. There's district seats, and then maybe even historical, I want to say historical society committee.
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to dovetail it again, so just like I've kind of been harping all day, we do need to increase public engagement. We need to support advisory committees like this, but it does take some bandwidth, and it may involve some staff involvement as well. So definitely will do what I can to fluff it up and get some engagement, but also let's kind of keep track of staff time and energy that it takes to support these committees, because once we get those volunteers on there, it can really be hard to get them up and get that energy sustainable, and understanding what level of staff support is needed to make them successful is always useful.
And it looks to me like Johanna's already looking at the list, and so if you can send that out to all of us so that we know what we can do to find people in the community that would take interest, that'd be great. There's nothing further. Thank you very much for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Oh, so sorry.
We talked about it, I mentioned in the beginning with the budget that Casey had given, or the
Oh, the harbor.
financials, yeah, about the Lucerne Harbor. And you and I had talked in the hallway about it being on track, looking towards October or something like that.
Yeah,
Basically, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, the permits are, it allows construction for dredging October through December, and so that's the target. We can pursue an alternative for well, there is an alternative, but it would likely would not come into play until about that time anyway. So yeah, we're going to be putting that out to bid with anticipation of fall to winter construction.
Thank you, Loris.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Public Works / Water Resources, Scott DeLeon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Board. Scott DeLeon, Public Works, Water Resources. All right. Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I have 2 departments, so I'm going to claim double time. Okay, Rob?
Like you wouldn't anyway.
Right. All right. Frankly, this is a little unfair to my departments, the breadth of things that we do, and try to summarize it all into some bullet points is really, really challenging. I appreciate this board understands the types of things that we do, and so we'll try to summarize, you know, a year of accomplishments and next year's goals as quickly as we can. First bullet right there, 2,100 requests for service. That was largely the result of the winter storms we had last year. We had obviously thousands of requests for service with unusually challenging winter, and give kudos to our staff for all the hard work and dealing with some pretty dangerous conditions, and they do excellent work. We completed 14 miles of pavement rehab with county forces this year in the Lakeport area. We awarded 2 bridge replacement projects. They will start construction later this spring, the Chalk Mountain Bridge in Spring Valley and the Bartlett Springs Road Bridge. We completed construction of a bridge on Witter Springs Road, and I added a note here. It's not on your table there because I heard several departments talk about vehicles they purchased. The library got their new bookmobile, and others. Our staff assisted those departments in the procurement of those vehicles and helping them specify them, and helped many departments with purchases of vehicles. We commenced construction of the Middletown multi-use path. It's nearing completion. Kind of broke my own rule of starting a paving project at the end of the year, and let that be a lesson to us. Don't do paving in December, but we are closing in on completing that project. We started the design work on the hangar development project, a project that your board funded. Really appreciate that. It is ongoing. They've completed quite a bit of the environmental work and some of the preliminary design work on that project, along with the East parking area pavement rehab project. If you recall, we completed a pavement rehab on the airport's runway and taxiway a couple summers ago. This is the partner project to that, where we'll completely redo the pavement in the parking area and the tarmac area to the east of the taxiway and runway. Very excited to say we commenced the design of the year 1 pavement rehabilitation project on Cobb. This is part of the 10-year plan that I prepared for the board with the help of NCE as our consultant. That project is in design. We will be going out to bid, I hope, next month for construction this summer. It has the potential, based on some of the list of roads that I've seen and the type of pavement rehabilitation that they're proposing, it has the potential to be one of the largest capital improvement projects ever taken on by Public Works. So we're pretty excited about that. We secured some grant funding through our congressman for the Canocti Road Sidewalk project, and I came to this board and explained some of the challenges that we have hiring professional folks, and your board supported the hiring of Coastland Engineering to provide staff augmentation services for our department, specifically engineering and inspection. They're helping us already with a number of projects, and we really appreciate their support. So for Public Works, some points of emphasis. I mentioned the 2 bridge projects. We're going to get back under construction of those this spring, and so those projects should be completed by the end of the year. Some projects that we have queued up and ready to put out to bid include that pavement rehab project on Cobb, slide repairs on Socrates Mine Road, the Lakeside Heights slide repair, Canocti Road sidewalk improvement, I mentioned that, and some sidewalk improvement or crosswalk improvement projects at various locations, as well as we need to get started on some storm damage repair projects from last year. Some other points of emphasis for the year: to complete the right-of-way acquisition for the South Main Street Soda Bay Road project, commence design work for year 2 of our pavement rehabilitation, 10-year pavement rehabilitation plan, continue to maintain county vehicle fleet and road department equipment with a plan to increase the number of hybrid or alternative fuel vehicles and complying with state mandated heavy equipment emissions requirements. We spend a lot of money every year trying to comply with CARB requirements and other things, and it's going to get real challenging here with the state's mandates to go zero emissions in not too far in the future. So we're really struggling trying to figure out how to do that. And then finally, enhance roadside vegetation management through the use of our newly acquired FECON units. You all have seen some of the work that has been done with those machines, and it is incredible what they can accomplish. So we purchased one through a grant this year, and we have 2 more that were part of our budget, and they are actually down at the equipment installer, and we will have them back this week. So looking forward to getting those machines back and get put to use. So let's talk a little bit about water resources. Again, an extremely busy department. What I consider our highest priority program is our quagga mussel prevention program. We maintained a presence at multiple public boat ramps to ensure compliance with our local quagga mussel prevention program, to provide boater education and really try to encourage people to recognize that they're the problem, they're the vector for this animal, and we really need to keep it out of Clear Lake. So very proud of the work that's being done largely through grants. We get a state grant annually, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, but we do a lot of the work through grants. We continued acquisition of parcels for the Middle Creek Flood Damage and Ecosystem Restoration Project, collaborated with local tribes on hitch-related projects, including the release of flows from Adobe Creek Reservoir earlier this summer, or last summer, to facilitate some fish rescue efforts. And we utilized multiple agencies for vegetation removal projects throughout the county. Was really impressed with staff's ability to think outside the box, find all sorts of resources and different programs that were being offered through state and federal agencies for debris cleanup and vegetation management. They're actually in the county today and still working on various projects. So they're doing a really nice job, and again, thinking outside the box and using outside resources to accomplish things that we don't have the funding or the resources to do. I mentioned grants. There's just a couple of them there that highlighted on that list that we managed to get this last year. Invasive weed abatement program, stormwater management plan, this quagga zebra mussel prevention. That's the state grant that we get every year, and again, it goes largely to fund our quagga mussel program, our local program. And then vessel and lake bed structure abatement of $100,000. We performed abatement of structures in Clear Lake, provided the atmospheric river storm response as a department, completed the recertification through FEMA for our NFIP community rating system, which provides a 15% discount for flood insurance policies in Lake County. And then through another grant, completed a rapid response and containment plan for Clear Lake should there ever be an invasive species introduction into Clear Lake. So again, the use of grant funds to complete that report. Some points of emphasis for water resources. Again, personally, I believe that's our most important program, is to continue the quagga and zebra mussel prevention program, and then continue to seek state and federal funding for projects such as the quagga zebra mussel prevention, TMDL, water quality management, groundwater management, tributary flow monitoring, and water rights monitoring. What water rights monitoring is referring to is the various water rights that we have. The Kelsey Creek Detention Structure has a water right. Highland Springs Reservoir has a water right. And there's reporting requirements with the state for those water rights, and they are becoming more and more onerous. And it's something that we're really going to have to ramp up our efforts in 2024. And then, of course, implement components of the Big Valley Groundwater Sustainability Plan. Some other projects that we would like to complete in 2024 with water resources. We have some repairs that are necessary for that detention structure. Kind of interesting, we haven't really had a need to do them because we had several years of drought where we never used the structure, and then last year we had so much flow that we couldn't use the structure, so we really need to get in and get that completed. I mentioned the use of Coastland Engineering. They're actually going to be assisting us with that. And then complete the Upper Lake feasibility study and work with the community members to develop the preferred alternative to address potential flood risks in Upper Lake. That is the project you heard about a little bit this morning. That's the feasibility study that needs to be completed, and that's a top priority for us and the department for 2024. We're currently just for your information, we're currently working on scheduling the next public meeting for that project, which is going to happen next month. Continue to work with these multiple agencies and the outside resources on the removal of vegetation within creek channels. And I'll make a little side note that, again, is not on the point there, but and it did get brought up, I think, earlier by CDD when Maria Turner was doing her presentation about an ordinance for vegetation removal from creeks. You know, we have ordinances for fire prevention, and we have vegetation in creeks that are creating equally damaging problems. And an example of that was the flood that we had in Upper Lake yesterday, that there's just too much vegetation in that creek channel for that channel to flow. And so that stuff's got to come out of there. So part of that will be an ordinance to help with creating the framework for getting that done. And again, that's something that we started work with community development on, and we need to continue to do that and get that completed. Enhanced maintenance efforts on all watershed protection district facilities. That's our levee maintenance and all the other types of maintenance that we do within the watershed. Continue to maintain lake bed structures to ensure safe boating environment on Clear Lake. We're responsible for all of the warning lights and all the things, the navigation aids and things that you see on the lake, and we'll continue to do that to, again, maintain a safe environment on the lake. And then the last one is the department receives lease payments on behalf of the state for properties that have encroachments on the lake. And we have struggled, frankly, making sure that everybody's paying their bill. And we need to ramp that up, and we intend to ramp that up and bring a little more equality and equal adherence to the rules for that. Just make sure that everybody's paying their bill. And then finally, some data points and metrics. You know, I'd like to see that total number of requests for service go down, but the reality is it's weather dependent. And of course, you know, we have 600 miles of roads to maintain, and we're going to get we're going to get calls for service on those. But it is a good number to know. The total number of miles of pavement preservation, total number of miles of paved roads, or non-paved roads that get graded. We have a grading program for non-paved roads, fall and spring grading. Again, that's somewhat weather dependent, but we try to get all of those roads paved twice a year. For water resources, number of lake bed permits issued, that's going to give you an indication of how much development, how much maintenance is being done on our lake bed structures. Total number of violations and abatements, that's going to give you a good indication of how many people aren't following the rules and getting permits for the work they're doing. And then citations, of course, is something that follows those violations and abatements. Back to the point that I made about the lake bed lease payments, the percentage of those payments that are received. And then these are pretty easy numbers, resident and non-resident quagga stickers that are sold. And then this is kind of new, but the total number of hitch-related activities and projects that we do throughout the year. And then, of course, there's been a lot of talk about public outreach. Our water resources staff does a lot of public outreach. You see them frequently and with printed media, on the radio, at various meetings. So we do a lot of public outreach. I think that's it. I did have a couple things I wanted to add for both departments, and you all know this, but I think a critical thing for us in 2024 is to navigate new directors for the two departments. And then finally, I'm going to take a moment to make a public comment. I didn't make it during your assessor, auditor, controller's office review, and that is I'd really like to see an effort made to develop the ability for all departments to utilize electronic payment for fees and things. That's something that the third floor desperately needs between community development and public works. We need the ability to take a credit card payment for fees and permits. And I'd like to see that countywide effort made. And again, that was something I had an opportunity to talk about during the public comment, and I didn't. So I saved it for now. So with that, I'll be happy to answer, try to answer any questions. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you for the presentation. We're going to start with, I'm not sure who was first, but we're going to start with Vice Chair Crandall.
Okay. So Scott, thank you for giving us that. I wanted to cover some of what you gave out, and I wanted to kind of add to it just because it was brought up this morning. The Clover Creek channel was the actual channel that flooded, correct? Or was it?
It was the old
Right.
original Clover Creek channel that comes through the town of Upper Lake was what flooded.
Okay, yes, because I mean, I went there and I seen that Middle Creek diversion was not. So I just wanted to emphasize that was the channel because it was stated.
Yep.
And then the gate is not broken.
So the stem on one of the gates prevents the gate from opening in all the way 100%.
Okay.
The stem is bent, and so it cannot be opened completely, but it can be closed completely, and it is.
So it's been stated that it's not all the way closed, however, it's opposite.
It's closed.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to emphasize that. And last year, there were right of entries that were sent to the community along the Clover Creek, the old Clover Creek channel, because those are private properties in the backyards, and so that gives the opportunity for whoever's going to partner with them to go out and do that work to clear all of the log jams and blackberry bushes. And I received a lot of messages and emails and calls from community members like, is this real? And so I double checked with Marina while she was here, and it is real. So giving that took place last year, so it's looking like it's coming forward. And then lastly, the Caltrans vegetation Middle Creek diversion project that's taking place within the next couple of years in that actual Middle Creek diversion channel, that's still in line to take place as well. So I just wanted to add those because I know it's been brought up, and you did mention a lot of what was happening, but I just wanted to give that as this situation is in hand right now. So
Yep.
I hope I'm correct on that.
You absolutely are all correct, and I'll add one other point. that staff is meeting with the state tomorrow to look at the Clover Creek channel to see if it's possible for them to get in there now, to see if there's anything they can do.
Thank you, Scott.
Supervisor Pyska?
So we heard a little bit about the vegetation, the creek vegetation clean out ordinance earlier, and I didn't ask a question, but just like really briefly, what does that look like? Is it a carrot or a stick, or does it help with the green tape to allow people to do that work? What exactly is that?
Well, I'm going to have to be honest with you and tell you I don't have all the details on that particular the plan that's been done. But I think it's all three. I think it's an effort to provide incentive. It's a way to get through the permitting, and I think it's all three. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you for the very detailed presentation. I'm totally giving you credit for two departments on this. Starting with the Lakeport area road, specifically Scotts Valley area, and that silence you've heard for the last several months is the satisfaction of so many Scotts Valley residents and their pleasure with the road, and of course, no good deed goes unpunished, so it's the 300 feet at the very end of one road that generated a complaint. But I want to, on behalf of my Scotts Valley peeps, they do notice, and they are very appreciative of all the road work that's happened out there. But speaking of that, we did have a meeting last night at my town hall, and there will be interest in the channel clearing, if only because there seems to be two main thrusts. One would be the kind of big kind of programmatic thing that I'm still trying to slog through with Water Resources with the previous supervisor's allocation out there, but also these kind of micro projects that would be through a Firewise community or one of these other community groups where individual landowners would take the lead on that and maybe get an expedited review of their lake and stream bed alteration agreement and all that. So there's kind of a macro shift in attitudes, it seems to be like, at the state level. It sounds like maybe with this ordinance we can dovetail with that at the local, but I remain confused at this point where we get the most bang for the buck, because even if we go in there and clear it all out, again, we're going to be back there in 10, 20 years to do it again. And also, where do we pick and choose those larger targets of opportunity? For example, they are focused on one section of Scotts Creek, but I have 10 miles plus of creek frontage, so I want to make sure we're getting bang for the buck if we do go in a big programmatic way. It is, to your point, filling your job and filling the new director for Water Resources are going to be such critical hires, and I think your presentation here just highlights that. So at this point, I just want to shut up and say thank you for the good work that is being done. I will need to circle back with you before you leave about what's happening out in my creek channels. But thank you very much for the detailed presentation, and I feel good about where we're headed, even if I don't feel great about you singing your swan song and going out on your bass boat. Yeah.
Supervisor Simon?
Thank you very much for the presentation, Scott. And yeah, it's going to be a challenge. We talked about that, replacing yourself and getting the new water resource director. But the one question I had, you talked about water rights. And this is a question I hadn't asked before, but with the Middle Creek Flood Restoration Project, will Lake County be putting in for a water rights with that extra water, or is that in process? I haven't asked that question yet. You brought it up, I just wanted.
There was an application submitted several years ago, and it's kind of sitting. There hasn't been a lot of movement on it at the state, and frankly, we haven't really pushed it, and it's kind of sitting there. But yes, there was an application. There was an analysis done. And I can get you a summary of that. I don't recall the exact number off the top of my head. It was
That's all right.
1,000 or something cubic. It was. I can get you the summary of it, but there was an application several years ago.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your comments and questions. Real quick, on Public Works, simple enough. I think we need to track PCI. We are definitely in competition between Lakeport and Clear Lake. Let's keep that competition going, and let's move forward and see what we can do to overtake some of the ones in front of us. And then water resources, I think keeping some sort of track. I know we're not the main entity that does that. Typically, it's Big Valley Rancheria and Elam Colony that does the water quality surveys. But I think continuously watching the water quality and seeing is it getting worse or is it getting better is something that we should track, as well as here it says total number of hitch-related activities. I'd love for us to track the population numbers just so that, again, we can have a historic number of what it is that we're seeing, what trends are happening, things like that. So that's what I would like to see. Other than that, I truly appreciate the work that is happening in both of your departments. There's enormous amount of geography to cover for both of those departments.
One final comment since you brought it up. And so when you talk about PCI, 2 other jurisdictions have got passed tax measures, correct, to help with those roads. The county as a whole, we have not. I'm not bringing it up or advocate, but I'm just, when you're in competition, you want to have equal competition. And
You don't have the same
they've got a
tools.
leg up. So just want to make that comment.
I believe it's one of them that has
One,
a leg
Lakeport
up.
doesn't?
I don't think Lakeport gets the automatic because they don't have a specific tax, they have a general tax.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much.
Thank you.
And next, we have Maria Valadez. I believe she will be online. I see her on the list. Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you. And I saw that she got promoted. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, see if we can get Maria Valadez online with us, and we will be back at 3:02 p.m. Your request came early.
Yeah, I
And
know.
let's come back and continue where we left off, which was the Registrar of Voters, Maria Valadez. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, you're going to have to bring it. Or else
Sorry
we're
about
gonna
that.
hear from our videographer.
Can you hear me? Good afternoon. Maria Valadez, Registrar of Voters. Accomplishments. I mean, I think this is hard for our department to try to break down, but this last year, because it was our first year since at least 1995 that we haven't had an election, we attended 18 outreach events. So a couple of them were at the high school, which was really nice. So we're starting to get the promote the elections and registering at the high school level. We prepared for the candidate filings for the November 7th, 2023 general district election. Well, there was no election because there was no more nominees or vacancies. We still had to get the process going. We started preparing for the March 2024 presidential primary election last year, in lieu of filing began in September. And we had to turn around right after December 8th and get our ballot layout and all of that prepared before our winter break. Processed 2,026 new registrations, and we updated over 10,000 registration records. And with all of those, we have to do mailings as well to for the new registrants as well as updated registrations. 2024 points of emphasis. 26 legislative bills were chaptered in 2023, which will be implemented for the 2024 election cycle. We'll be conducting the March 2024 presidential primary election, and we'll be preparing for candidate filing and the conduct of the 2024 general presidential election, along with school districts and special districts. Data points and metrics. Ours aren't probably as good metrics as others because we just process whatever registrations, all the new registrants, all new registered voters, which are probably include some of the younger 18-year-olds. And then we update all registration records. And this year, I foresee that we'll have a lot of re-registrations. People will want to register or re-register due to party changes or change of addresses. And then we'll continue focusing on public outreach efforts between the primary and the general election. So that's all for me. If you have any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your presentation. Do we have any questions? Supervisor Green.
Yes, never apologize for lack of data points. If the office is providing excellent service and providing our community with free and fair elections that we all can have confidence in, then let's celebrate that as a point of pride, which I certainly do, and I appreciate all the hard work that you and your staff continue to do. There was one quick question, and we talked about this briefly, but in some of the cards that go out to registered voters in years past, if they weren't returned with a signature, it was kind of a no harm, no foul. I know that law changed slightly, and I think your cards went out slightly different this year. And if you're looking at me puzzled, I don't want to put you on the spot, but it was one of the, are you still registered at this event address?
It's a pre-residency requirement that we have to do prior to every primary election. So, a lot of those cards that are being mailed back, we are taking them back, updating their signature record to have a newer signature record on file. So therefore, when people vote, we have more signature comparisons to be able to compare their signature. A lot of people that register newly register at the DMV, so they use that little pen, and then when they actually use a pen, a ballpoint pen, the signature differs from what was on the DMV record. So now that we have that card that people mailed back confirming that they're still living here, we'll have an additional signature image. And we wouldn't have to
So
necessarily
it's
no.
basically an added signature. If somebody didn't return that postcard with a signature, it doesn't kick them over to inactive status or anything like that.
The only way a voter becomes inactive is if that postcard comes back with, like, they've moved and they didn't notify or re-register to vote, but we don't inactivate voters.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So thank you again for everything. I do agree with your metrics on there. Just because times are changing, maybe knowing what percentage are mail-in versus actually going to the ballot box, and continuing to check in where resources are needed for that. And also the, what was the other one I was thinking of? The percentage of folks that are actually voting, just to see what, do we need increased outreach to get people to engage when there's an election, or are we seeing the level of engagement that we need? So those are some of my thoughts as to other metric data points that we might be able to look at.
So we do have, like, the statistics for, like, how many people voted at the polls versus vote by mail, even on the, our website with the statement of votes. It's listed on there. So we have been looking into a program to kind of take the statistics from maybe back to 2000 and just kind of have, like, them show the, you know, the movement up, down. I did notice that prior to 2020, our percentage of in-person voting was like at 28% of the registered voters that voted. So, I mean, it was already going towards vote by mail
Right.
since then, so,
It wasn't completely new when it, after
No.
COVID. Yep.
nope.
No, and having that historical data is exactly what I'm looking for, so that would be greatly appreciated if that was possible. So thank you very much. And if there's no further comments or questions, thank you for
And
coming
I'd
over.
also like to thank my staff, because without them, none of this is possible, so. thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next in line, we have Sheriff Coroner, Operation of Emergency Services, Rob Howe. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So do I have to operate my own?
The one key, yes. Sorry, the arrow key. I should have been more specific.
There we go. So I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to give a little update.
You're on, you just need to have it right in front.
Again, I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to give a little update on accomplishments and goals. Our sheriff's office is a pretty large department with many functions, lots of responsibilities. We have patrol, custody, civil, dispatch, investigations, coroner, boats, court security. And every division has had significant accomplishments throughout the year. I'm proud of all those accomplishments of all of our staff members. I'd like to give them all a thank you for what they've done. With the limited time we have here today, I'm not going to focus on a whole lot of data points and just go over a few things that I think are very important and focus on those things. So my goal with coming to the Sheriff's Department was to improve our service given to our citizens by improving staffing and morale within our department. Those two obviously kind of go hand in hand. So I'm going to start off with some hiring statistics. So in January of 2023, we had a 50% vacancy rate in dispatch. And as of right now, we have a 20% vacancy rate. That vacancy rate was actually 60% during part of the year, but 50% at this time last year. We also just gave a conditional job offer to a potential employee last Friday, so we're hoping to have that down to a 10% vacancy rate in dispatch, and that's huge for us. As the board knows, dispatch vacancies affect us in other ways, like patrol. For every shortage we have a deputy in there sitting at a console instead of working on the street. A lot of those hires are new hires, so we have 3 currently in training, all doing well. We're optimistic that they will get out of training, and at least 2 of them within the next probably month or 2. We currently have 2 deputies assigned to dispatch, and we're hoping to have them back out on patrol as soon as that happens. Very good plus. So in 2023, 7 total hires in dispatch. I think that's positive. For the position of deputy sheriff, as of January of 2023, we were at 33% vacancy rate, and we're currently down to 7. Now, we also did unfund and delete a few positions, as the board knows, part of the plan to pay for this, and so that helped a little bit, but I'm really optimistic at the fact that we have 5 deputies right now in our field training program, and 2 more scheduled to be in our training program within the next few months. 7 deputies in our training program at the same time is something that I've probably never seen. To be honest, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. We don't have 7 training officers that are certified and trained right now, but that's a pretty good problem to have, and we will certainly deal with that. So total for the year of 2023, we hired 8 deputy sheriffs, and that's another good number. Another area that we've always struggled, as you know, is deputy sheriff corrections, DSCs. January of 2023, we're at a 40% vacancy rate, and we're now down to 26. That's 10 total DSCs hired in a year. Last year, 3 of those were females, and that's significant. The board probably understands that all counties in the state, for whatever reason, have trouble hiring females for this position. And because we house females, we're obligated, we're mandated to have females on duty. We've actually had to borrow female officers from probation in the past just to comply with the law. So the fact that we're able to do that is a really, really big deal to us and a plus. Those 10 hires for a year, some people may not think that's a huge amount, but I'll just give you a little story that goes with it. At one point in last year, we processed 100 applications to hire 4 deputy sheriff corrections. When you're talking about testing, written testing, background medical psych, and then the academy, these are really tough positions to fill. So it's a lot of work from our department and HR, and of course, thank them as well. So because we're talking about hiring, I just want to take a minute to thank this board for your tremendous support of law enforcement, from hiring bonuses, retention bonuses, and improvements to overall salary and benefits. Your work and your willingness to support us has certainly benefited. It's worked, it's working, and I appreciate it, and I know our citizens appreciate it. So the next thing I want to talk about is the roadmap task force. I feel like I've talked about this a lot lately, so some of this might be a little bit repetitive. And I know you've heard about it earlier today. I bring it up for a couple reasons. First one is they're doing great things, and the stats kind of show for themselves. But the main reason I want to bring it up is I think they show what kind of things can be accomplished when you have the staffing to be proactive. This is really our only proactive program that we have going right now. In an ideal situation, proactivity would happen every day, every shift. Ideally, we would have 5 deputies on, 4 covering beats, 1 cover unit, and a sergeant. But unfortunately, far too often, we're operating with 2, and one of those is a sergeant. So when you're going detail to detail to detail, then writing reports, very little time for proactivity. And this is the kind of thing that can happen with that proactivity. In 2023, just keep in mind, obviously the roadmap task force is us working with code enforcement. But the law enforcement side of this is only 2 deputies and a sergeant. It's a pretty small group. And that group in 2023 initiated 151 cases, made 67 arrests, seized 60 guns, 101 grams of methamphetamine, 9 pounds, 4 ounces of fentanyl, 2 pounds, 6 ounces of cocaine, 9,282 pounds of processed marijuana, and 345 pounds of hash oil. And let's focus on that fentanyl for a minute, because I think we all know what a problem that is in our society right now. I read a DEA study that said a kilogram, 2.2 pounds of fentanyl is capable. A lot of factors go into that, of course, but capable of killing as many as 500,000 people. So to imagine that 2 deputies and sergeants seized enough fentanyl in a year to kill 2 million people is scary. And again, a lot of factors go into that, but it's scary no matter how you think about it. So goals. I only wanted to go over a couple. We obviously have a lot of goals in the department, but again, for time's sake here, we're only going to go over a few that I've really covered today. Maintain and boost our staffing level. kind of goes without saying, with all the success we've had, we've got to keep the people. I would really love to be back here before the board soon, telling you that we're fully staffed, that we don't have any vacancies, and then trying to begin that conversation of adding positions, allocations back to our budget, and I think we can get there. I'm, again, very excited and optimistic about the success we've had. Another goal that I wanted to look at is the school resource officer. It's always been a program that I like. I consider it another proactive part of law enforcement. I don't think you can put enough value on protecting and building relationships with our youth. And this is a program that's purely staff-related. Historically, school resource officers have been paid for through contracts with school districts. They really have no or little to no draw on general fund. Just a matter of if we can get our staffing back to a position to allow that. And that's, I'd love to have at least 4 positions by this time next year. Something else I'll add, and I didn't put it in there, but we talked about the roadmap task force, is as a goal, find the funding to continue that. I can say with the success we've had and the necessity I see in it, it's something the Sheriff's Department's planning on doing anyway, no matter what. But I'm certainly looking forward to that discussion coming during budget time to figure out how we're going to get that and how some iteration of that task force would look going forward. I think that's all I have for you. There's a lot more matrices, that kind of thing, but you can read those and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Any comments or questions? Vice Chair Crandall.
Just wanted to add thank you for that, and we love seeing all those numbers and things going pretty good, you know, on the upscale. Just wanted to highlight that with the situation where it says the positions and the vacancy rate for like dispatch is lessening, if you will, and so the positions with the deputies moving out of that area, the vacancy rate with deputies coming in on top of whoever was doing extra duties or outside duties, because they're not even doing deputy work, which would that provide more resources for the beat, if you will? I don't even know if that's what it's called, but patrol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned before that patrol is what everybody recognizes as the Sheriff's Department primarily, and that's who we have out there responding to calls. I think I've mentioned in the past that we had 13 sign up just a few months ago, and just a little over a year ago was 23. If we were to get the 7 people off training and the 2 back from dispatch, we would be signing up 24, I think it is, which would put us at a position to have that minimum 4 deputies, cover unit, sergeant. That's always impacted. People are always off. There's training, but at least for a sign up, that would get us back to a really good position.
And that's what I wanted to highlight is, you know, right now we're not at that because they're filling other positions. They're basically.
Yeah, and I probably should have mentioned that dispatch, the jail, patrol, all of it's the same. We've had a lot of success, but a lot of that impact isn't seen yet.
Right.
Right now, every trainee probably takes more time away from a training officer than what they contribute. I don't mean that in a negative way.
No,
it just is what it is. Our deputies are also training officers, so we certainly need those. We need to maintain our staffing while those new officers get off training.
Thank you.
For it to be truly a benefit. Same with dispatch.
Thank you.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, and I agree 100% about Roadmap Task Force. I already mentioned it earlier today. I think after having this pilot under our belt for a 2-year period, it probably makes sense to kind of meet up and figure out what's been really successful and what's been really helpful, what kind of tweaks can be made. I know we're going to have that discussion at budgeting time. I think it's a priority that we all pretty much agree on to fund. And it's just how do we make it better? And, you know, what are the, I'm looking forward to those conversations of what are going to be the new goals, what the new areas of focus will be, and how we're going to keep this going and make it more successful than it's been in the past.
I'm looking for that forward to that as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I, too, will be looking forward to the next iteration of Roadmap Task Force, if only based on some comments we received from the community earlier. I was not here when the original task force was created, so I did see a lot of deliverables and metrics, if you will, as far as weapons and drugs seized and stuff like that. But there are any number of conditions, homelessness included, where there may still be need for direct intervention that falls well short short of a weapons seizure or something like that. So how we prioritize those goals, and certainly in terms of geographic scope, being able to serve all our districts with some level of equality or equity, whatever you want to call it. I look forward to that discussion very much, and I also appreciate your outreach this morning on the folks who were speaking up. Also, I can do this offline, but I have not had the time or opportunity to get out to the jail facility. It is in my district. I'm very interested in getting a tour at some point of the jail
Anytime.
operations. Yeah.
And like you, this task force preceded me. It was already going, and so the guidelines were already there. So I'm very much looking forward to the talk you're talking about, where we can figure out what worked the best and where we go from here.
Supervisor?
Yeah, I'll be excited when we have that conversation come back to the board. Pilot program was the conversation we used in the beginning. Lake County Task Force sounds a lot better than doing the whole thing, but, getting started, the return on investment, just in some of the numbers shown here, and this isn't the code enforcement side of it too, which came earlier with CDD. It wasn't broken down in that way, but all the work that's been done over there, so, yeah. And great to hear those numbers moving in the right direction with dispatch, jail facility staff and everybody, so excited to have those conversations. Doing a State of the County in February, so those will be some good things to report. Have a bunch of
Absolutely.
club. Yeah,
Absolutely.
good job, Sheriff, thank you.
Now, very good numbers. Appreciate seeing the staffing issues being a little bit alleviated, not perfect, but at least alleviated. I know that I will mention, I will never forget Officer Beesgrove. He was all alone in a creek bed in Clear Lake Oaks, and I know that I had a conversation with your predecessor and said, how do we make this never happen again? Yeah. How do we add more staff so there can always be somebody right there? I think he stayed alone for 10 minutes before somebody finally showed up to assist him, and that to me is scary. If that can happen to one of our law enforcement officers, how are we supposed to feel as community members in our communities? And so making sure that you have the staffing you need to provide the safety measures that law enforcement provides to communities is important to me. Officer Hill, I haven't even thought about it until you mentioned SRO. That was my officer from when I was in high school a long time ago. That relationship lasts forever. And I didn't even have great engagement or interaction with that officer, but I will never forget he was always there. Having SROs is an important part of what we do here. I know you and I talked about it when we did the unfunded. Obviously, there was no other choice, but supporting you and getting that back on board is absolutely something that I'm looking for this year. Love all the numbers, love what's going on. I know that you do have an annual report that the sheriff puts out, and I hope that we can utilize some of these metrics in the sense of seeing the difference between previous years and this year. It usually provides just the numbers for the year, but no comparison, and seeing if we're moving forward, if we're going down, things like that. So I'm hoping that we can, again, look at trends and look at multiple years at a time rather than just 1 year, because it's hard to tell, are we doing better, are we doing worse?
We can certainly do that. Obviously, this is where all these numbers come from.
And my last request is, and I know Vice Chair and I have been there before, please let us know when you do swearing-in ceremonies.
Okay.
I feel it's important that I can take part in being there and saying welcome to the team. Thank you very much for being here to protect our communities. But if you could please share whenever there is a swearing-in ceremony, we will make sure we have some Board of Supervisors that show up. I think it's important to let them know that we're happy that they're here. Maybe that helps out. Maybe I scare them away. I don't know. Let me know. But I think it lets them know that we care, and it's not just a job. It's important to us a lot more than just a job.
No, and I'll certainly do that. We obviously do our swearing in on an individual basis, but we are planning kind of a mass swearing in with a lot of new people. We're trying to find a good time. We've had people away for the academy. We want everybody together, but we are planning that, and you'll certainly be invited.
And you want their families to be there too.
Of course.
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Yes.
Follow up on that. We have had that happen right here in the chambers a few times, which I thought was pretty unique. So I'm just putting it out there. I don't know if you have an opportunity, but it happened right here. Some local folks, Sheriff Brian Martin brought them in, and they did the swearing in and all their stuff right here. I don't know what introducing them. So just I'm gonna throw it out.
Certainly one of the thoughts was to
was
have it here. We're figuring out just how many people we're talking about. I mentioned how many people we've hired and their families. We might actually have to have a bigger venue, but we will have that
We can make something happen.
for sure.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Next, we have Social Services, Crystal Marketan. Good afternoon, and thank you for your patience as well.
I like sitting here. Okay. So, good afternoon, Board. I am here to talk a little bit about the accomplishments of social services. Let's see, so over 2023, despite vacancies, currently we're at 19%. We've continued to issue the benefits consistently, and I am really happy about that. It's something our community needs, but also I think that it really reflects, our staff's commitment as well. We maintain Medi-Cal coverage for over 31,000 individuals in the county. Also increased welfare to work engagement from 15% during the pandemic to 25% post-pandemic. There were waivers in place during the pandemic, but I feel like we're really starting to gain some momentum back. And then also, this community, as well as many others, were hit with CalFresh skimming and scamming. And we had a high 1 month in July of $110,000 stolen, and through training and, or customer education, I guess is what they're calling it, we were able to reduce that to less than $700 in December.
It's huge.
Oh. So for in-home support services, adult protective services, public guardian, administrator, and conservator, we increased in-home support services reassessment compliance from 51% during the pandemic to 75%. 80% is within normal range, and so we're very close to that again, which and we have been able to hire some social workers there as well. Assisted adult protective services clients at risk of homelessness to maintain or repair their current housing with the assistance of Home Safe funds, which we applied for, and I think are really important funds for us to have available because we can keep some people in their own homes as a result of those funds. In child welfare services, highlights there, child welfare will partner with the Lakeport Police Department for a crisis intervention team to respond when unhoused families with children and young adults aged 18 to 21 and formerly in foster care are encountered. So they will send somebody out to work with the police department there. And then we also certified 18 new county resource homes, formerly called foster family homes, allowing for the least disruption to the children entering foster care through more regular parent-child visits and the ability to stay in their school of origin. So that's really huge. We used to place quite a few kids outside of the county. Administration, housing, and area agency on aging. We equipped all staff with a laptop and virtual private network to accommodate all approved work schedules and attract a broader group of applicants. We created a hybrid conference room at Anderson Ranch to facilitate group meetings with geographically distant parts of the county and state. Developed and began execution of plans for worksite consolidation, allowing for a considerable reduction in leasing costs. That's going really well. Area Agency on Aging obtained funding to add an additional long-term care ombudsman to cover Mendocino County exclusively, and that will allow for a lot better service there. And then housing supported 184 voucher holders across the Housing Choice Voucher and Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Voucher programs. Keep wanting to turn a paper and it's a button. And so then points of emphasis for social services this year is we want to attain the compliance in IHSS of 80%, and I'm sure we will hit that. explore the possibility of partnering with Chico State University for an Adult Protective Services Master of Social Work program, similar to the California Social Worker Education Program for Child Welfare. So it's a part-time education program that you can do while you work, and then you do your payback. So it's worked really well in child welfare, and it's kind of exciting that they're opening it up to adult protective services. And then continue efforts to stabilize staffing of the public administrator, public guardian, and public conservator unit while serving the over 80 clients through probate and LPS conservatorships. Child welfare, continue our family finding efforts to locate relatives to better align with the state's vision of a kin-first practice culture. Child welfare will maintain collaborative efforts with local tribal representatives through attendance at regularly scheduled meetings and venues conducive to open dialogue and problem solving. Eligibility staff will attain compliance with Medi-Cal recertifications by completing all overdue reports and maintain timely processing. And Employment Services will successfully implement Lake County outcome and accountability system improvement plans, something that was a structure used in child welfare to set performance goals and now has been adopted by Employment Services also, and that's statewide. And then we will expand our welfare to work shared practice and processes offered collaboratively at Career Point One Stop in Lakeport to meet client needs on the North Shore. We're already in the process of that. And then revamp a grant-based on-the-job training program and implement by January of '25. Pursue future opportunities such as a basic guaranteed income pilot program, which for me is kind of exciting. The results we've seen thus far have been good. And then complete building consolidation efforts to best assist our clients and reduce administrative costs. I think that's it. Oh. Okay, so we do have a data points. Okay, so these would be the proposed data points, and do you want me to read them, or?
There's no need. We should have already
Yeah.
been able to take a look at those, and we see them right there.
Right. And I do have, I had brought, or I'd asked Matthew to copy a couple of data tracking sheets that we have, and I'm happy to share those with you, and you can determine which of the data points you actually want, because we have many. And I think some probably are not as interesting or as, really relevant. So I'll leave those, and then just ask if there are any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments? Supervisor Green.
Just again, I am always stunned and amazed about the breadth of the programs that fall under your portfolio, if only because it caused me great confusion when I worked there initially. And also, how do we keep you supported? How do we keep these various programs going, staffing up, consolidating your workspace while increasing flexibility? I do see on the conservatorship stuff some care court overlay, so I didn't see anything broken out specifically for onboarding care court as we get closer to that. I know we just delayed implementation, but it's a super complicated subject, and it will cross departments and levels of expertise. So any quickie thoughts on care court and how well we're doing on the way to that?
Well, we haven't really started we're aware of care court certainly, and have done, have read everything that's come across so far. But I do think it's not, immediate for us. What's immediate for us is to fully staff what we have right now. And because I'm aware that care court will require more. And so we have one social worker and one supervisor, need 2 more social workers in PA-PG-PC right now. So we, down the line, care court-wise, would probably need even another social worker. So that's, we're just trying to deal with.
As a support for the LPS stuff, the LPS filings? Okay.
Right.
And then I guess I can follow up with county council later, but there's going to be an added overlay of more court hearings and more complicated court hearings that also involve your department and his. So, all
Yeah,
right.
it's definitely a more involved process.
So, not to put you on the spot again, but within your department, kind of baby steps, or do we have an interdepartmental kind of task force taking an early look at care court and how that implementation is going to roll out in the next year or two?
I don't think, I have not been told there's any interdepartmental task force. We'd certainly be amenable to participating in one if there was. I think, right now people are still kind of reading through, what's available literature-wise and so on. And some counties have already, started the care court process. It'll be really interesting to learn from those counties, I think. And then, try to adopt some of the best practices when we implement.
Yeah, in particular, I think Glenn County is the rural in that first cohort, and probably the closest county in our size and funding.
Right,
So
yeah.
that might be a good county to do some outreach with. Right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the questions. We did just participate in a care court conversation, again, with all North Coast counties involved, and Glenn County as well as Orange County, who are in the first cohort, spoke to their experience. Glenn County so far has had 0 referrals for care court since they've started. We don't implement until December 1st of this year. I would suspect that a collaborative effort and group meeting will start occurring just to get the pieces in place for how it is that we're going to take up any referrals that come up. That way we're not building it as the referrals come through.
Right.
But we will be learning from the experiences of the other counties in the first cohort. Everyone is recognizing that there's a whole lot less referrals than what they were anticipating. Even down in Orange County, I think they had 200 referrals and only a handful, 2676, I remember 6,
Yeah.
actually went through and have court mandated efforts. So,
Yeah, we'll take this offline, but part of that may be the very narrow criteria.
oh, it's very narrow.
It's narrow, even more narrow than what I initially thought. And so,
And it would
I would-
generally take out-of-county resources for us to even segregate that, right? So the level of care needed to reach the diagnosis. So anyway.
Yes.
And I think that we'll be coming back with further conversation for the board to recognize, maybe even during budget time, to discuss what's it going to take to make sure that we're prepared for the needs of care court.
I do think it is resource heavy, though, in terms of compared to what we have available here, and that's the challenge for small counties in implementing pretty much everything, right? But I am going to get a copy of the Glenn County model, and I'd be happy to share it. So.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I know I'm always looking for metrics might be an impossible metric, but I'd love to know how many people utilize the resources that are available to them through your department and are able to, I hate to use the term graduate, but get out of a situation where they require these supportive services to keep them plenty of food, keep them in a house and things like that. So just always looking for that metric to see where our successes are and how to amplify that success. That to me is what I'm always looking for. And so I know it's not a simple request because it's not what you submit to the state. You submit to the state more penetration as far as you have 50,000 people eligible. How many of those 50,000 people are you providing the service to? But I want to that's an important aspect as well. We want to make sure that those that fit the criteria of a program are able to access the program. But I'd love to check in on how successful are we with providing the program to really be that leg up to become more independent and more able to take things on their own. So I'm going to keep trying to figure out how it is that we can obtain that. But I want to bring
We do
it up.
have that kind of, and it really comes with the employment services program that was deferred for the years during pandemic. So it really is now just coming back to life. And of course, we're short-staffed because we robbed them during the pandemic for the other side. And so now we have to train people back up. But I do think that it is possible. It's not a one-to-one, you know, in terms of the definition of, because one person gets employed in a household doesn't mean that that home is completely off aid, right? And there are, you know, limits to where they can continue to receive aid and work. But I think that, you know, ideally we'll start, you know, looking more at data like that as we roll forward. And Employment Services, I mentioned here, is currently undergoing an internal evaluation of their program, which is part of that whole process that I talked about with child welfare has done for many years now. And so I think out of that will come a good plan, you know, for us to be able to see more of that activity would be my hope.
And I appreciate that. And you mentioned it's from 15% to 25% right now with the, I can't think of the work zone, the employment services.
Yeah.
What was the pre-pandemic number? I'm putting you on the spot.
For participation, yeah, It'd be
interesting to know where we are in coming back
you know, I
out
can
of
get that
COVID.
information for you, but I'd really be just guessing right now.
Okay.
And
That'd be interesting to find out what that number is. Is there any further comments or questions? Did I cut you off?
everybody good?
Thank you very much.
All right, and if you have a question later, give me a call, send me an email.
I won't
very
be a
much.
stranger. Next, we already took a break, so we're good. Next, we have Special Districts, Scott Harder. And in 15 minutes at 4 o'clock, I will open it up for public comment.
So I've got 15 minutes.
No, you don't.
That's right, I have 5 to 7.
We've just redacted them down to 5. Just kidding.
All right, thank you, Board. Right arrow. My goodness. Special districts, that's us. We maintain and manage water and sewer and lighting districts within the county, as you well know. We have quite a few districts, and to cover accomplishments and goals of each actual district would be overwhelming and not suited to a 5 to 7 minute presentation. So I've tried to pick a few highlights for the previous year and for moving forward into next year. If at any point you want more information on a given district, reach out to me. We can do it here. I've got additional information I could bore you with, or I'd be happy to do offline as well. So 2023 accomplishments. One of our big accomplishments is we did a installation project, kind of a rehab to one of our lift stations, sewer lift stations down in Clear Lake. And we installed what's the Overwatch system. It's a pitless direct pumping system. So we hope to see some benefits to odor. It eliminates any odor. It's not the sewage isn't exposed to air down in a wet well that is then fills up and then pumps down. This takes the sewage from the community and regulates the pumping speed based on the flow of the sewage coming in, and then pumps it on to the next spot in the collection system. So that has been functioning for about 2 weeks now, where we've kind of pulled back all the things. We got all the bugs worked out of it. We're looking to watch it for 6 to 12 months. And if it functions as well as we hope it will, we're looking to possibly implement that in some of our larger lift stations, which will help with all kinds of odor issues and flow issues. So really kind of excited about that project. Next big project, we had some legislation come down. We were required by our state waste discharge requirements, which is our permits on the wastewater side, to update our spill emergency response plan. So there's new requirements for when there's a sanitary sewer overflow, an SSO, or a spill. There's new reporting requirements, there's training requirements. So we brought an outside consultant in and revised all of our spill emergency response plans for all of our sewer districts. We have those documents filed now with the state. We've trained our staff on those new policies and procedures, and so we're moving forward with that. So that was a big ticket item last year as well. Let's see, completed permanent repairs to our Adobe Creek Bridge water main crossing. So in Findlay, we had a water main that ran underneath Adobe Creek. That failed a couple years back. We had a temporary crossing on top of the bridge to keep the community of Findlay in water. We were able to successfully complete the permanent project. It's hanging off the side of the bridge on brackets, and we got that project done. Quail Trail water main. So out in Spring Valley, we did a water main replacement on Quail Trail. That project has been completed with the exception of paving. As you're probably aware, PG&E is undergrounding. They've got a fairly aggressive underground project within Lake County. I think they're looking to do either 23 or 33 miles of undergrounding of their facilities within Lake County. One of those portions is along Quail Trail, so we didn't want to pave that and then have PG&E come in and trench cut it and dig it all up. So we're trying to coordinate that with them, and hopefully we're going to work it in such a way that PG&E will pave that back. So that'll be good. Replace the clarifier media in all 3 of our Trident packages at our North Lakeport Water Treatment Plant. So that'll help us. We've got some new updated clarifier media that will help with water treatment, hopefully help us be a little more efficient in production of water during the summertime when the lake condition gets kind of foul. We have initiated and we've got the process going. We've got a consultant on board. We're working on rate studies in 3 of our districts. One's a water district, Spring Valley, Northwest Sewer District, and Kelseyville Water and Sewer District. So we are doing analysis currently. We've got some draft studies underway right now. We'll be moving forward with a public hearing, 218 process, and engagement for all 3 of those districts through the coming year. Another big project, we completed the fiber optic cable connection project for our administration building. One of our neighbors dug through our previous fiber optic cable, and we were on a radio antenna to the courthouse, which provided kind of spotty service for about 18 months before we were able to get new easements and that project completed. We've been talking public outreach. We do a lot of public outreach. Our staff, both our admin staff and our field staff, we visit local high schools. We've been to multiple local high schools. We've gone to the local junior colleges. We've been there at career days. There's a big Earth Day festival and celebration that Calpine puts on down at the Middletown Center. We participate in that. I've done the Judges Breakfast. I've done Ogle Steele's radio show. So we've got quite a bit of public outreach and really try to keep our face out there. Let's see. Points of emphasis for next year moving forward. One of our big focuses is going to be upgraded odor control units for 3 of our major lift stations. So Lift Station 1 and Lift Station 2 in Clear Lake, and Northwest Lift Station 2, which is up in Nice. They've got some old antiquated odor control units and technology at those lift stations. We're looking at other alternatives so that they are not creating nuisance odors. Lift Station 2 in Clear Lake is down on Lakeshore Drive. It's right across from a restaurant. Lift Station 1 is out near the senior center, and there's some residential development going in. So we really want to try and get a handle on squashing the odor issues that are currently happening at those. We've got roof repairs needed at our electrical mechanical building in Clear Lake. We've got a couple of wells we're looking at, one in Spring Valley, one in North Lakeport, and one in Soda Bay. Source redundancy is required by the state by January 2026. So in those 3 water systems, we're looking at additional source groundwater. We've got funding for most of those, and so we're working through the process of siting either a test well location and putting in a test well, or drilling an actual production well. So we're working through that process this coming year. Oh yeah, part of that is also installation and extension of the raw water intake in North Lakeport. Just heard back from the consultant about 15 minutes ago. They've incorporated some of our comments, so we're hoping to get that project out to bid here pretty soon. Replace the SCADA system, the SCADA computer, and the programmable logic controller for County Service Area 21, North Lakeport. That's currently underway this week, actually. We are running the plant in hand manually. and the consultant was there programming the logic in the PLC today. Hopefully that'll be finished up tomorrow, and we'll be able to bring the plant fully back online. Class and comp, we've been working with HR since last October on our CMOM. So that's Capacity Management Operations and Maintenance Coordinator position. We had that position filled about 5 years ago. The individual retired, and we have been unsuccessful in multiple attempts to backfill it. So we're working to kind of retool the requirements, retool the job description, and the compensation associated with it. Hopefully we can get that position filled, but that helps with a lot of our sewer compliance. As you can imagine, water and wastewater are highly regulated industries within the state, and having that CMOM position filled will allow us to kind of better meet our needs. We're juggling it between management staff, those duties currently. Last but not least, we need a new roof. Lars talked about the facilities maintenance plan countywide. Our county admin building, or our special district's admin building, is one of those buildings that has a need. So we've got a consultant on board with that. We'll be looking to get a bid package out here pretty soon so that we can get that re-roofed this summer. There's the list of metrics that we've got for you, and I've got actual numbers if you're interested. We've got it broken down by district. I don't even have that here with me because that gets way into the weeds. If you're interested, like I mentioned, I can provide that offline. But to kind of give you a 30,000-foot overview, I've grouped them by water, wastewater, and lighting district. So for calendar year 2023, we have 3,661 active water system accounts. We had 10 new connections in calendar 2023. In that year, we issued 1,475 service requests. So that can be anything from a water main break, or my water smells weird, or can you come turn it off? I'm going on vacation for 2 months. Any of those sort of things, we'll issue a service request when a customer comes in. It may seem like a lot, but we are in a service department. We interface with the public, and that's kind of our main priority and our main job. On the wastewater side, skip that. Delinquency. So delinquency as a percentage of total billing. So that's kind of an interesting metric. We can kind of track how our customers are paying us and how many of them are behind. So on the water side, it's not bad at all. It's 0.8% delinquency as a total percent of billing. Wastewater side, we have 11,606 total active accounts. Last year we had 11 new connections. We had 461 service requests issued. Those can be, my plumbing's backed up, and we'll go out and investigate whether or not it's on the private side. Well, we won't investigate on the private side, but we'll determine whether or not it's on the public side. If it's on our side, we'll clean the lateral if that's what needs to be happening, or if the main line looks like it's not flowing, we'll get that flowing. If our side looks like it's functioning well, we'll advise them that they should contact a plumber, and our system is functioning well. 461 of those service requests. Delinquency as a percentage of total billing on the wastewater side is a little higher. It's 10.6%. On the water side, if you don't pay your bill and it extends to a certain point, you get the water turned off. So that tends to keep the delinquency down. People are incentivized to pay their water bill. On the sewer side, if you don't pay it, then if it gets to the end of the year, then it rolls to tax roll. So. One of the other metrics we're tracking is sanitary sewer overflows. That's the state's term for a spill. So in calendar year 2023, we had 12 of those. And those are ranked in differing categories. There's category 1, 2, 3, or 4. One's the most severe. Category 4 is almost inconsequential. So in that year, we had 5 category 1s. Those are either of a certain volume that it's a lot, or it made its way to a drainage course. So it either got to a storm drain, or it got into the lake or creek. We had 1 category 2 spill, 5 category 3 spills, those are pretty insignificant, and 1 category 4 spill, which is even smaller. Lighting district metrics for calendar year 2023, we have 642 lights total that we manage throughout the county within 10 differing districts. We had 7 new lights installed, and we had 9 service requests issued. So, any questions?
Thank you for your presentation, and I have Supervisor Pyska.
I just have a question about the full service, full circle. Yeah, full circle, and where we're at with that funding.
We are prepared to issue the RFP. We're still ironing out with, gosh, that is coming through which federal, EPA, I believe, source to make sure that we're in compliance and we have the green light from them before we issue the RFP. It's still in process, but dealing with the federal government sometimes is not very quick.
Right, and that's just for feasibility, correct?
Correct. That is to revisit the 2004 feasibility study, the preliminary design report.
One step in a much larger process.
Correct, yeah.
Absolutely. Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. Also, thank you for any number of annoying meetings with me where I'm just asking questions, dumb questions, but they're not so dumb, because one thing I don't see up there is a priority right now, if only because you don't have current board direction or current funding to pursue this, is the provision of water on South Main Street and the Soda Bay Industrial Corridor. I want to thank you for the provision that we did, at least as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, do a feasibility study about that. And I know a lot has happened since then. I know the complications of spinning up a CSA are crazy. I know spinning up what the city was doing with its annexation. So I know it's not a priority, and I'm not going to make it one, but I just want to communicate to you. I thank you for the information that has been provided on that subject, and I do hope to be able to meet with you and some of our city and fire partners to further explore what we can do, because it's really interesting to see all these things going on for wells that serve North Lakeport, and knowing we still have no practical ability to provide water for purposes including fire protection in one of the most important industrial sections of our county. So that even if it wasn't listed as a priority for you, I just want to signal publicly it's going to be a priority for me in my last year on office that we move the needle, whether through the county or whether through the city or through some other process.
Certainly. And happy to keep meeting with you guys and seeing what we can do to move that forward. As I said at the beginning, it's probably not listed as a priority because, I've got 4.5 pages that I had to summarize down to 2 slides, so it's not something we're not aware of, but it just didn't make the 2 slides.
There's no project, no current direction, and by the way, we do have a road widening project there too. Yeah. So it all kind of connects together. So I appreciate you got plenty on your plate. I'm going to be working hard to add a little bit more.
Not a problem.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the metric of the delinquent amount as percentage to total billing. I think that's really useful for us to know how things are going and your revenue stream that you rely on. One of the things that it shows the sewer overflows, does that account specifically for overflows that end up in a body of water? Or is that just overflow in general?
Yeah, no, it's any sanitary sewer overflow that is caused by our system.
Because I'd love to see it split, because I know it can be, especially you go to the water board, you could find those specifics. But I think understanding the impacts to our lake and our streams, if it does end up going in those bodies of water, that split would be important to know how many gallons of sewer has ended up going in there.
Yeah, and that's the category 1 I mentioned. So category 1 spill either enters a body of water or it's of sufficient volume that they classify it as a category 1. And so for the previous year, we had 5 of those.
Gotcha. What was that?
5. 12 total, 5 category 1.
So we didn't account for the spill that occurred in March?
Oh, yeah.
Thought it was more than 5.
No, 5. A number of 5.
Not the number of gallons.
Not
Okay.
the number of gallons, yes. No, that spill was much larger than 5 gallons.
That's why I was asking. Okay.
Yeah.
But I appreciate all this. I think that we need to keep tracking those things. And also knowing the age of your infrastructure, I think is something that I would be looking for, not as a metric, but as a further conversation at a later time, to better understand when did this get created, when was the last time it was upgraded, because every quarter mile is a different quarter mile than every other piece in the infrastructure in this system, and it'd be nice to kind of get an understanding of where we are, especially as we talked with Lars Ewing about our capital improvements for our facilities. Do we have that set into our capital improvement plan for special districts? I'm not sure that we're allocating a certain amount every year to do those types of upgrades until we know it's absolutely needed. But I think it helps us to budget for future issues because infrastructure is quite a large number when it comes down to it. So that's what I have for you, unless there's anything further. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Second to last, we have our treasurer tax collector, Patrick Sullivan. Oh, CA Parker.
Yes, Chair, you mentioned you were going to do public comment at the top of the hour.
Hey, reminders are always welcome.
No one on Zoom right now.
No offense to you.
Just keep coming up.
We have a hand up.
You asked and you shall receive. We have Betsy Kahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for all this great stuff. I've been really compellingly watching this all day. I did send an email to all of you, including Scott DeLeon, about the question about the water right that Supervisor Simon asked. I can tell you that Mr. DeLeon did not start his employment in the Department of Public Works until May of 2010, so he was not involved in that whole thing. I have a considerable amount of information on it, but I provided you with the essence of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we did receive that email. At least I know that I saw it, haven't had the chance to read through it yet. And that is the only hand that we have in the Zoom room and no one else in the chamber, so let's go ahead and move on. Mr. Sullivan.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today and providing the opportunity to speak. I will try to keep this fairly brief as I roll through my presentation.
Thank you.
All right, so I want to touch on some of the highlights that our office has accomplished in the last year. We had a lot of plans to upgrade our systems and try to modernize a lot of our practices, automate a lot of different areas where we could increase efficiency. One of the requirements behind this, it was a huge lift for our staff, so I would definitely praise our staff. We are, as all departments are, short, and they did an incredible job. We began by upgrading all of the software and hardware that was necessary to complete a lot of these updates we needed to do. We did significant upgrades in the area of property tax and payment processing. That ultimately allowed us to implement the Check 21 electronic check deposit process. That was a pretty large undertaking for our department. It required working with our vendor, RT Lawrence, as well as our operating bank, which is Wells Fargo. And this took us to the next level, I think, in terms of check processing. Previously, we used a manual process to deposit checks. We would have them picked up from the county building and ultimately delivered to a bank where they would be processed there. We now are able to make use of the scanning equipment we have in our office already. And through that, we're actually scanning everything in office and then automatically transmitting it to the bank. So theoretically, if you were to come in the morning and hand your check over at the counter, we could scan it, and at the end of the day, it can transmit to the bank and it's deposited in our account. So we're now able to do same-day processing. That component goes hand in hand with the lockbox system we set up, which is also through our vendor, RT Lawrence. We use the Megabyte software system. RTL, the nickname for our vendor, and Megabyte actually have the ability to work together. And so that lockbox system, which was a very large undertaking to get underway, but now it is in operation. And that's where everyone saw on their tax bills that the checks would go to the location in Whittier. That has been a huge success for our office. That has diverted tens of thousands of pieces of mail. We were able to stay up to date on processing. Most of the time, we've been able to remain within a few business days, especially if people were to send their payments to the lockbox center. Even a lot of people still chose to bring payments into the office, but even for that, because we didn't have the backlog, what we had in the office was manageable and we were able to work through it. One of the other projects we accomplished was the continued restructuring of our banking. We've made a lot of upgrades, especially in terms of security and fraud protections. The structure of our accounts, we're starting to work on things that will help with electronic payment processing. We have updated our banking structure to ensure that all funds are invested, and I know I've touched on this in investment reporting before, but we made use of sweep accounts so that essentially at all times the county's money in the treasury pool and all the district funds are earning a return. And that has also enabled us to work out better costs with the bank, and I think it's been a success. So it's just an expansion of that. We've utilized other programs in a way that we haven't before, or for the first time. We're making use of CAMP, or the California Asset Management Program, CalTrust. These are JPAs that offer a higher rate of return and meet our guidelines. We're still using the local agency investment fund, or LAIF, to a limited extent. We worked with Chandler. We've continued that project with them that your board originally undertook to continue to build our portfolio and sort of make it the highest performing asset that we can. We did implement that additional liquidity portfolio, which, like these other methods, has allowed us to ensure we're always earning a return and a return to a higher level than before. We conducted our Chapter 7 tax sale, started out with 1,000 properties for an auction, which for our office is a huge undertaking, and that was a success. We began processing Chapter 8 sales for the city of Lakeport and Clear Lake. We've initiated a process to utilize new enforcement mechanisms and court collections. That's a division that's probably the lesser known division of our office. We have Treasury, tax collections, and court collections. I don't know if everyone's as familiar with court collections, but we're making a lot of changes there. We're going to be using a new third-party agency, and we've begun steps to set up a tax intercept program. We'll be able to utilize that in unsecured tax collections as well. And this is going to help us recover a lot more funds, especially from entities or persons that we were not previously able to. We've begun a transition with probation to reconsolidate court collections. It has been a little confusing over time. It would require a flow chart to figure out which case, once a criminal case is adjudicated, the financial enforcement would either go to the treasurer's office or probation, depending on the type of case. So like a straight felony without probation might have come to us. If it was a felony with probation, it went to them. But in the end, we had to merge all of our reporting together. And there's also requirements about prioritization for payment plans. So after meeting with probation, they have a much smaller piece of the pie than we did. And so I think it just became easier working with them to consolidate it, which I believe it was quite a while ago, back into the treasurer's office, into our court collections division. It's simpler to have it in one place. It's actually easier for the defendants. There's no more coordinating which payment you need to make in their office, which payment you make in our office, and having all the data in one place, I hope, will help. We began taking on all new cases for court-ordered debt as of December 2023. So our goals for this upcoming year, we did purchase and have begun implementing the megabyte tax sale module into the sale process. That's hopefully going to save us a lot of time. The project is not as developed as we had hoped, so it's taking more work to implement, and the size of our data is a problem. But ultimately, I do think it will save us a lot of time, and so we're working on that now. We're continuing the rolling annual Chapter 7 sales, and we're still trying to work on Chapter 8s on the side as well. We're going to hopefully be able to expand the capacity lockbox program. Right now, we just use it for secured. There's a potential to use it for supplemental and unsecured payments as well, which will free up more of our staff time. We plan to pursue new enforcement opportunities for transient occupancy tax. We're probably going to go back to a software program like what we had before, but there's some more advanced platforms that we may be able to utilize. There's a little bit more competition in the market than there was back when we first started. We're going to continue and grow the county's investment program. We'll continue to coordinate with Chandler Asset Management on that. Even though we've taken on all the new cases for court-ordered debt coming out of the criminal justice system, we still have to deal with the cases that are already in the probation system. We both have a software called RevQ, so we're working right now with IT and the vendor to transfer all of that over. The other thing I should highlight, victim restitution, the financial enforcement for that will be consolidated with us, so I think that will help there. Work on the tax intercept collections, continue to monitor impacts to court collections at the state and local levels. There's a lot of legislation, a lot of program changes that could impact our operations. And we need to continue development of the cannabis tax program, particularly in the areas of compliance and enforcement. There's probably some ordinance revisions we'll need to do to ensure we are successful in that area. These are some of the metrics that we're looking at, being able to display in the next year. I know we're short on time, I don't want to run through all of them, but as far as the presentation goes, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments the board may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Vice Chair Crandall?
Not really any questions, Mr. Sullivan, and just wanted to highlight and remind you of our, last week we were in Sacramento and there was other counties with RCRC that were, we were discussing some things after the meeting, and Mr. Sullivan was there on another, what was it for?
The Treasurers Association.
The Treasurers Association, and so I was telling them the great things that he's done, and they were like, really? And I think they didn't really believe me until I called them over and said, hey, tell them what we're doing, and they were really impressed. So I just wanted to tell you, I already was impressed, but they were like, wow, all the different things you did just within that year, so just wanted to give him a kudos on that and let you guys know he's pretty popular.
Well, same thing happened at CSAC when we were bragging about you.
Well, thank you. Tax collector is usually not popular, so I'll take it while I can.
Until April comes around.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Supervisor Green?
I just want to balance that with your hate of the cannabis GPA. It's a mixed bag, but I appreciate everything you do, and we're getting nothing but glowing reviews in and outside our county, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I do appreciate the Chapter 8 sales that you're working on with the City of Lakeport and have already accomplished with the City of Clear Lake, and I think there's more to come. One of the metrics that I want to look at, if possible, is what is our property default rate? Are we decreasing it? Are we stagnant? I think that's to kind of look at what the future is for you and your team as you continue to do the Chapter 7 sales. What does that look like? And I would hope that we're going to get better and better as we continue to progress economically and go through the tax sales that you're currently going through. That's one of the things that I would like to see out of this.
We definitely have that data, and I could try to incorporate into this. My fear would be that potentially should be a separate item to go over because it's a lot to to cover. But yeah, we definitely do have that available.
Okay. No, I appreciate it. And if there's no further comments, thank you for your brevity, and we'll move on to our last item. UC Cooperative Extension / Farm Advisor, Mr. John Harper. Good afternoon.
Hello, my name is John Harper, and I have been a livestock and natural resources advisor for both counties, Mendocino and Lake County, for over 32 years. And in July, I retired from that. And I've been county director now for quite a number of years too, off and on. And where we're at right now is we're interviewing for a full-time county director who will be a full-time administrator position. And so I wanted to, first of all, I should thank the board because it's always a pleasure in all those years that I've appeared before the various boards. You're my favorite, the truth. So, and I really want to thank you also for the support you've given us. It means a lot. The fact that our last budget, you granted our request for an ag technician for Lake County, which we haven't had for 12 years. This will greatly help our extension program. So we're really grateful of that. I'm also grateful, and this is part of the funny part, whenever you hear from University of California Cooperative Extension, handouts are a requirement You know, it's just part of our show that we have to do. So I brought a couple of handouts, and part of the reason I brought these handouts is I'm now working 30% time, and so I don't have a whole lot of hours to do things. And so the presentation format, to keep it down to the 5 to 7 minutes, was quite a challenge given the diversity and huge amount of effort our advisors do. So I've given you my cliff notes so that you can read about what each of the 11 programs that we've offered to your constituents and the people of Lake County. And so I just wanted to make sure you had copies of that. And in preparing for this, it's always fun to, especially when a county like Lake has already come up with their 2028 vision. And so in reviewing, how does the University of California fit in with like the local communities? And one of the things that I gave you is actually UC Cooperative Extensions, ANR's, their vision statement. And it aligns very well with, you know, your particular 2028. But when in looking at each of the 10 priorities that you guys have come up with, I see that we touch about 8 out of those 10 in the programs we offer. So I just wanted to go ahead and mention that. So now let's get to the short version so we can be brief. Again, our accomplishments are presented there. That I think your staff I have to thank for whittling what my cliff notes that I gave you down to these bullet points. So that was very wonderful to have them do that. So they cherry-picked some of the things out. Of course, the support of growth and development of Lake County Prescribed Burn Association is so important to this county, because we've had the most burns of almost any county throughout the state. And so update on the recruitment of a Mendocino Lake Cultural Burning Advisor. I'm happy I'm on that committee, and we have narrowed the applicants down to 3, which we will be interviewing in February. So there's progress on that. So that's going to be a really important thing. One of the other things that was picked out, and you'll see it in the cliff notes on Dr. Klebson Goncalves, he was able to detect a brand new pest that was going to be attacking pear trees. And the pear industry is still important to Lake County as well as Mendocino. And so they actually had collected samples and genetically had it identified back in Tennessee because they weren't able to do it. And it's the first kind of pest. So the fact that we were here, he was on the ground visiting farms. He found it, and now there's a chance to take corrective action. Of course, we network with all the pest control advisors, the private sector, who advise our farmers on treatments. And so they held several meetings on that to get this word out so that we think we're going to be able to stop it. So this next year, in 2024, we're going to be monitoring that and make sure that.
Pest.
Yeah.
What is the pest?
Yeah, the pest is a borer, and it is called a.
Oh, it's in here?
Pardon, yes, it is on my cliff notes under Klebson's summary.
A flat-headed borer.
Yeah, it's a flat-headed borer, but they finally identified it as a Pacific flat-headed borer, and the Latin name for it is there, so I'm not going to try to pronounce that for you. But anyway, that summarizes some of Klebson's accomplishments, and that one was a big one, which is summarized here.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah. And then, of course, the assessment of the multifactorial tree mortality, that's Dr. Michael Jones has been involved in that, as well as the development of the Lake County Prescribed Burn Association. All of our other programs that I've summarized on my cliff notes for you, essentially, we continue to conduct research, and we continue doing community outreach, both educational and to be here to answer questions. Again, like I've said before, this board, having us located here, you have the front door to the University of California. Mm-hmm. And now it's interesting because our current president of ANR, she has made connections with the non-land grant colleges or University of California. So we're building relationships with UC Santa Barbara, UC Los Angeles, UC, so we're expanding our programmatic capabilities and bringing more of that abilities to get information out on the ground, which has been our mission. Let's see, right arrow, right? So again, we're trying to promote more collaboration among our scientists, the tribal communities and decision makers, which are you, as well as members of the community. Along that line, the new person who we're hiring for the county directorship will be a full-time administrator. And this is going to be really important for you because as the position description's been written, the person will be actually spending much more time interacting with county government, okay? They're going to be required to split their time between Lake and Mendocino County. They will be much more active probably in department head meetings. They may be actually attending some of the county functions that you do, like CSAC and things of that nature. Again, strengthening our partnership so that we have more direct feedback to you. Unique to our position up here, because we have so many indigenous people, the university has decided this person will have a strong component to do additional outreach, not just on, here, let us tell you what we think from the university, but to also listen to the indigenous people in the area to try to dovetail our program better and increase our communications with our tribal people. So that's an exciting part. Of course, we always have to talk about 4-H programs, and so this year we successfully hosted another 4-H camp. We had 54 participants, 15 teen staff, and 12 adult leaders. And that's just a very tip of the iceberg kind of thing. And our former program rep, Julie Fussell, retired December 24th, but now we have Jean Gouliard over here, and she's doing an excellent job. And we hope, upon one of my 2 goals also, is to not leave the livestock position or the 4-H position open. So what I've submitted 2 positions, and we're in the process right now for the livestock natural resources position and a full-time 4-H youth advisor. That youth advisor probably will focus in the STEM, the area, the scientific, technology, I always get that wrong, engineering and mathematics. And so that's going to be something that we're really keeping our fingers crossed that we can bring those people back. I know that the livestock position, I'm almost sure that's going to be a slam dunk because the livestock industry is so important to these 2 rural counties, and the natural resources that those animals are on are much of what our counties are made up of, so that's going to be important. Let's see. So, points of emphasis, again, we're going to keep doing what we do well, and we're going to try to expand upon that. Dr. Laura Garza, who has her PhD from UC Davis, joined us on January 3rd. And so she is the water quality, quantity, and climate change advisor I think I've spoken to you guys about before. And I am super, super excited about her. And I wish that Scott and Scott were still back here in the room, because I think that it would be important for her, them to connect with her, because she's really going to be heavily involved too in Mendocino County, because unlike Lake, they don't have like a water agency type of position over there in Mendocino County. And so part of what we sold the university on was this person being a policy person could help and assist the counties more directly through either grant writing projects or helping facilitate, because both counties have the same issues, where old deteriorating infrastructure, the need to improve our water quality. So Dr. Garza is going to be a much beneficial member of our extension team, and I think that Lake County has to get in there too and say we want to meet with her. So she's presently, like I said, she started January 3rd, so she's right now just out meeting people, getting tours. We're introducing her to the farm bureaus and to the different producers, but it's also important because she is a policy person too. So she is someone that we see the local government really looking for her support or advisement. You know, she will not be in a regulatory function at all ever, because that's something we don't do. But she will be supportive in the education and the science and the ability to maybe collaborate on beneficial grant or contract work that the counties might have. So it's another set of eyes for that. So that's the most exciting part. And then I guess I can end it here and just entertain any questions you might have. And again, I encourage you to read the Cliff Notes, because our advisors are very busy and they're doing some excellent work. They're all young. It's time for me to get out. And so this may be my last opportunity or next to last opportunity to be in front of this board. So I really appreciate all you've given us, and hope that the next person that we get in, I should tell you, we had 11 people apply for the county director position, and we will be doing preliminary interviews this last week in January, and then mid-February we also will be doing final interviews. The final interviews for those positions will be available. There'll be a segment that the public or you could tune into via Zoom and watch and stuff. So I hope we got some good people for you to replace me. They're probably more qualified than I am. So again, any questions?
Thank you very much for what you do, and appreciate the knowledge that we can tune in and listen in to see what's going to happen. I think that's important to all of us, so that's very appreciated. And the information, there definitely had to be some dwindling down to make it fit within the 5
Well, your staff is excellent. I mean, they got it down to the requisite number of slides, and I hope I forgot to set my watch, so
we're good.
Over time?
We are good.
Okay.
Supervisor Green.
Yeah, thank you. If this is the last time, I want to bend over backwards and thank you. You've been very patient in our conversations, even again, as I've kind of been stumbling in my understanding of how you support us and what we can do to support you. And is it ground up? Do we get to lean in and say we maybe want to emphasize some of these things? But to the extent I was able to drill down in here, I do see Mr. Chen's name come up. He definitely has been active in addressing some frost issues with some of our local grape growers. Super excited to see the climate change person come in there. Guess what? This is very core to our county. And so I'm just very excited. I want to express my gratitude for the University of California and the Cooperative Extension and their long legacy of providing support, even though I'm a little mystified about how your programs filter up and how they get funded and how we are going to be able to interface with the new director and the various programs under his or her domain, because there's a lot going on here, and I think it's a good combination of pure and applied science that if I were a science wonk, I'd want to come to Lake County just because it has so much going on here. And we are going to rely heavily on your subject matter expertise. We are going to hopefully explore some avenues that haven't been explored before. You and I talked about, are there more frost-resistant varieties of grapes and other crops that could be examined, because even if we had best available technology for the last 30 years involving groundwater pumping, that may not be sustainable moving forward. So I know the hitch thing has kind of moved us front and center in that, but it's not really new to the UC Cooperative Extension. You've always faced various problems the growers are facing, and it's been your charge to help them. And you have a much wider palette now of issues before you than you may have had 100 years ago. So if we can be supportive, please let us know. And if you need us to get out of the way from time to time, please let us know that as well.
Well, and I encourage you with this new county director, when that person gets in the position, that you do work with them, because again, they want more feedback from you guys too. You know, historically, we're a cheap deal. We're a cheap date, I guess, is what I would say. You know, all of the salaries, all the benefits are paid by the University of California for the advisors who are here. Part of the, give you a little brief history if I have the time. Basically, farm bureaus had to be organized in each of the counties before they would put a farm advisor in the county. So that's why we always have such a close connection to the Farm Bureau, because the University of California made it a requirement. You have to organize those farmers first and ranchers. And so that was part of the deal. But then it's a cooperative agreement. Part of our salaries and benefits come from federal dollars, USDA, and it's passed through. And this dates back to the days of Lincoln, that basically created this system in the land-grant college system. We're part of what's called the Smith-Lever Act, and that's what put advisors out into the counties. And in other states, they call them county agents, county extension agents and stuff. But that's kind of how it all transpired. And what does the county do? You provide us with a place to operate out of. You provide our travel. You provide a budget that helps us with support staff. And that's the support we get from the county. And so when we used to run the numbers for people, it varies between about anywhere from a 7 to 1 return on your investment to up to an 11 to 1 type for if you matched our salaries for us being here. So, and all of our people they're dedicated. We talk. Many of advisors share this philosophy of we're kind of missionaries, science missionaries, and so we're here to help the people and the community. And you'll see that our mission statement for all of UCANR is basically that, and that's what we're here for. So we're grateful because we get state money, so part of our money does come from the state of California too, and why we've been able to grow back our program was because of Senator Laird's contribution to getting these positions funded. And so I'm very happy that we were able to get a good portion of them here in Lake County. So,
Absolutely. Supervisor Pyska.
Well, I've so appreciated you over these years, and I wish you well on your retirement. We're really looking forward to the next director and all the big work that we have ahead of us. We've done a lot, as you mentioned, with the tree mortality and so many other of the projects that are mentioned in your Cliff Notes. So anyway, I just want to thank you.
thank you. It's always fun.
Thank you very much. Let's not make this the last time. Let's make sure we give you a proper farewell if today is going to be the last time.
I don't think it will be, because I do owe the new coming in county director a little bit of background, and I'd like to be able to introduce him or her
Perfect.
to this board, so that will be another opportunity to come before you again. Because like I said, you guys are fun to come before and talk about our programs.
And I appreciate your availability. I know that I have underutilized the extension, but I know some of my colleagues have not. They've definitely utilized it to their advantage when needed, but that's what you guys are there for. And definitely appreciate hearing of the efforts made by your team to prohibit a potential, I'm not going to use the word outbreak, but I guess something could be along those lines, but so important to us to maintain a safe and secure agricultural platform, and that's very important for us to keep doing that, and so appreciate hearing about that. Just makes me appreciate the folks that work in that department that much more.
And I forgot to mention, not only will the county director have a public section that you can listen to, but the new cultural burning advisor will also. So I'll make sure that we keep you informed of when they do their public presentation, so that you can sit in and listen to that too if you have the time and opportunity.
Perfect. Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anybody need a break before we move on?
Let's take 5 minutes.
Let's go ahead and take 5 minutes. We will continue at 5:43 with item 8.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, would that be 4:43?
Did I say, yeah, 4:43, 5 minutes. I don't know what I said, but thank you. Let's go ahead and come back into session. And we are on item number 8, 2024 legislative priorities. I am going to guess Mr. Rothstein is in charge of this item.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Matthew Rothstein, Chief Deputy County Administrative Officer. Consistent with your board's direction late last year, it's our intent to establish a more consistent presence in Sacramento in 2024 and advocate for your board's legislative priorities. You will be aware a draft set of legislative priorities was attached to today's agenda, and this is intended to be a one-page high-level summary and can be updated as the year progresses. Priorities currently listed include water reliability, pursue efforts to ensure sufficient groundwater and surface water quality and availability for all beneficial uses, including agriculture, municipal, and environmental purposes, while safeguarding natural, cultural, and economic resources. And the word economic has been added to that list, just for clarity from what was posted. Wildfire resilience, increase wildfire preparedness, implementing the 2023 Community Wildfire Protection and Local Hazard Mitigation Plans. Tree mortality and hazardous vegetation removal, mitigate risk to county roadways and evacuation routes, and coordinate with state and federal agencies and public utilities to ensure hazardous vegetation is appropriately managed. Fire insurance, support efforts to ensure the availability of fire insurance for property owners. Lake Pillsbury, advocate for a deliberative and inclusive process to decide the fate of Scott Dam and the Lake Pillsbury area, representing the interests of the county and its residents, including those whose lives and property will be directly affected. Housing supply, provide new housing at all income levels, establishing a housing trust and accessing state and federal tax credits. Homelessness, shelter and connect unhoused residents with wraparound services. Economic development, support state policies that enhance the county's efforts to create a favorable environment for business, including increased recreation and hospitality, broadband availability, and waste woody biomass utilization. And opioid fatalities, with partner agencies, support efforts to reduce the number of opioid fatalities. And as you'll appreciate, legislative advocacy isn't the right tool to realize all of your board's priorities, and administration and departmental staff will also continue to explore grant opportunities at the state and federal levels, for example, to fund the priorities that are established by your board. And for your awareness, we have not yet received any notice of upcoming community project funding for this year. However, last year we received word on March 1, so that's still in line. But departments are expected to be prepared to submit shovel-ready projects that fit the available community project funding categories once those are released. And we look forward to your board's discussion and further priority setting.
All right, thank you very much. Just a real quick question that I didn't have when I reviewed the agenda. We're moving on to item number 9 for the discussion. Smooth transition. Didn't even know it, but here we are, number 9. Opening it up for conversation, and we have Vice Chair Crandall.
Yes, the list, the priorities, I think they're right on. I just wanted to see if I can entertain adding, not adding, but just enhancing the scope, if you will, of insurance when it comes to fire, also flood insurance. I know we struggle with that. We've had a meeting, I want to say last year, a gentleman came out, one of the insurance providers, and discussed how difficult it was due to floods as well to provide insurance. So there's that, and then also, vegetation, not only in regard to hazardous for fire, but also hazardous to flood, being in the streams and all of that. So I know that there's a lot of clearance that needs to take place. I know that in discussing what we did earlier, there's also right of entry things, right of entry initiatives, but then there's also some where we could potentially work on clearing as well to prevent or prepare and mitigate that. I don't know where that fits. I don't want to, no pun intended, dilute the wildfire need, but I just want to see some of that tended to as well, or at least on the scope, if that makes any sense. And that's really it for me.
Yeah, and that's certainly an example of something that we can discuss with the folks from Nielsen Merksimer, and each of you will have meetings coming up. So we can discuss those priorities, and if there is an appropriate priority to add to the one-pager, we can bring it back and adopt that.
Supervisor Pyska?
So, yeah, thank you for Thank you for adding the word economic to that resources, because I think that we have to look at this really holistically. So I think that helps a lot. I know we have municipal in here, and as I think I brought this up last month with the board, that with the state deficit, that a lot of big projects are going to be deferred, and we're already hearing that from our water companies. At least we got a report out from Cobb Water last night that the water projects that it was about $25 million worth of projects that were started after the Valley Fire through the consolidation. $5 million, we're in $5 million to that, and a lot of the projects are now being deferred. And we were asked by RCRC in early December if there were priorities that they needed to advocate for, and I think this is one of them. I think we need to find out from our other water purveyors what type of infrastructure projects are being deferred. And I think the word municipal in there gives us enough flexibility, but I don't know if we want to add the word infrastructure to tighten it a little. Or not tighten it, add more flexibility.
We could, I think, with all beneficial uses, that's probably enough
Okay.
Latitude for the purposes of our lobbyists. But we'll certainly want to highlight those needs that you just raised.
Okay.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know how to say it without being critical. It's sounding critical. It's not intended to be critical, but under economic development, including increased recreation and hospitality, balancing interests of sustainability, climate change, what have you, and I have had this discussion with Mr. Rickelman. Definitely it's important to our economy, but hospitality industries and recreation don't necessarily lend themselves always to stability and sustainability. These tend to be lower paid jobs. We don't typically are able to house some of these seasonal workers adequately, and we may be ignoring certain warning signs involving our fisheries and what have you. So definitely it's an important thing on that, but if we're going to go all in on increasing that without realizing there may be some physical and climatological, is that even a word, impediments to that, I think we could potentially miss some other opportunities that are of equal importance. So if, for example, if we're going all in on broadband availability, if we had housing, we could position ourselves as a future tech center, just like I saw in the city of Fresno, which you don't equate with Silicon Valley, but when there was a concerted effort by a public-private partnership down there to really focus on developing tech expertise and tech training and stuff like that, they have quite a technology hub down there, and we just don't have any real place to hang our hats on that. But if we do successfully get broadband in here, then why would we not take that same young up-and-coming tech generation and position ourselves as having not just really good broadband, but also really good quality of life, really good housing options, and what have you. So I know recreation and hospitality represents kind of the low-hanging fruit and has traditionally been an area of emphasis. But I have a manufacturing project that's taking shape in my district. I'm very excited about that. I think light manufacturing, not just in terms of biomass, but light manufacturing in general. So I guess if we're going to hit economic growth, let's make sure we hit all the sectors and not just focus on things like rec and hospitality to the exclusion of others.
Thank you for your comments. Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, I don't think that those are to the exclusion of others. I think they've been identified in our strategic plan, and it's really how, recreation is how you build community, and you have to have those assets for people to want to live here. So that's the expansion of trails and parks. It's not just for visitors. That's how you enhance our community. So I am okay with the focus on both of those. The hospitality is the biggest block for our growth in tourism. So
What if it said including but not limited to increased recreation and hospitality? That way, it stays with what's on the current process that we've already began with economic development, but it also does not limit in the sense of anything else that could be economic development.
Sure. I mean, it could stand as is, and you could probably take that implied. I just, if we're going to explicitly call out certain industrial business sectors, this is great. I would call out others, and maybe we can defer that conversation later. But to me, it has been the absence of the word manufacturing and the absence of the word technology is notable to me, because those are very important economic factors in many of our other communities, and they are a focus of economic development in many of our other communities. So I want to make sure we're not ignoring those.
Appreciate the comments. Vice Chair Crandall?
I don't think in looking after, kind of going through this, after looking at the list and what I wanted to add, water reliability can actually, for what I was talking about with flood, like vegetation, when we deal with it with the hazardous vegetation, it provides the opportunity for the water to flow freely through the channels, which prevents more vegetation to growing, if that makes sense. So I think we can add that in there. And the only reason I bring it up is because at the Hitch meeting with the state representatives, they talked about all these promises they were going to make to us to take care of some of this. And then also just looking at some of the initiatives that are on their radar when it comes to flood and all of that. So I know in one instance when it says reliability, collecting water and floods, I remember last year when there was a heavy flood, the governor said, well, collect as much water as you need to prevent from flooding, if that makes any sense. I don't know if it's sunset, but like just looking at those type of initiatives when they go forward to the state capitol and see what's in those types of, executive orders that we can benefit from or use. So that's it.
Supervisor Simon?
Yeah. Overall, I think it's pretty encompassing as we move forward. I'm just happy the county is finally taking the step forward with the lobbyists to be over there in Sacramento. I think the most important thing, looking at economic development, is who we're talking to in the governor's staff. Lieutenant Governor, I think, sets on the economic development stuff for California, if I'm not wrong. And those are the relationships Lake County needs to build, looking at the long-term success of this. So could probably pick through a lot of things, but really just I'm happy about, I think we're scheduled for Friday for a conversation, just to talk directly about it. But not only thinking of the state level, also the federal level, state and federal, which is really important. And I know we all do as much as we can with Congressman Thompson and everything, but really making sure, as you said, steps from Lake County are in the hallways of both the state and the federal offices to make sure our priorities are listed all the time. So I'm excited about that. One thing always talking about, we were just talking about it, Bruno, 2035, you got to have all electric or hybrid vehicles. We really got to look as a county where we're going to position ourselves, right in between 101 and I-5. We want to make this place a hub. Hey, you got to get off and pull. You just don't pull over at Harris Ranch and charge your Tesla. Come to Lake County, look at the beautiful views, get here. We want to bring it through all of the economic development opportunities, like you said, in the hospitality ways we're going to do that. So long-term strategies, I'm just excited for that, but I really want to talk about that electrical infrastructure. I don't know how many charging stations we have in Lake County now, but not many. And it's going to affect all of our residents, as we heard from the Department of Social Services. 31,000 people, are on fixed incomes and other things. How are they going to get those vehicles? How are they going to get the chargers for their homes? And those types of things. So I want to make sure we don't miss out on that as we're moving forward. But excited about it. I'll have a bunch more on the priorities. But this is how everybody gets what they need. I'll guarantee Sonoma, guarantee Napa, they got their lobbyists. So I'm happy that we're moving in this direction because it's a powerful tool for Lake County for you guys.
Absolutely. It's us having extended workforce in Sacramento, an extended workforce in D.C. Appreciate this coming to us. I know there was a quick turnaround in order to get this on the agenda today already as is. So appreciate staff putting this together after some quick conversations. There's also a quick turnaround mainly because bills are due very soon, and we want to make sure that we're talking to the right people to push for what our needs are. personally, I don't feel that we need to change anything that's on there. The list is maybe not a complete list, but it's a good cross-section of all the things that we are discussing on a monthly basis that our staff is working on. What I am looking forward to is completing our strategic plan. Because to me, what we're asking our lobbyists should be based on a strategic plan, not just topics that we agree on, but what is the first thing that we need today in order to start asking for the second thing. And some of these items here on the list, it's hard to say where it fits in the order of operation of things. They're all great sounding topics. They're all stuff that we're working on. But until we have that strategic plan, this I can support, but I'm not fully in love with the way that it is until I recognize where it fits within the strategy that we have. Because strategic planning to me is not just economic development, it's also our lake, it's also law enforcement, public safety. It doesn't always have to fit specifically into economic development, and so I'm looking forward to what that looks like once we start going through the strategic planning process. But then I think it'll make it so much easier to do an annual priority list for our lobbyists where all we do is take what's on the strategic plan. Yes, we might be able to pivot just a little bit by annually reviewing our strategic plan, but at least it's already kind of written for us as we go. There is one thing, I know it speaks to water reliability. I don't know if it fits in there, but there is a large topic that's been discussed today, that's been discussed throughout our communities, and that's the word hitch. And I don't know if it should be in water reliability in the sense that we want to have water flow to help with the hitch spawning, but I don't see it in there. Maybe it's part of the environmental purposes. I don't know if that's what the hint was for, but I figure since we have a declared emergency, we have tree mortality as a specific topic, I think we need to write the word hitch into our requests of what our priorities are, and I think maybe the best fit would be water reliability.
Okay, and just for what it's worth, that was intended with the environmental purposes and also cultural and natural resources. If it's those three elements, and that is something that we have already raised.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate everything else that's there. It fits in, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this develops as we progress, because we are taking a lot of what I believe are good steps. I think strategic planning should come before, but hey, if we can get some return on investment by starting this today, then let's not stop. So I think that I'm good with what it is. That was my only suggestion of what to add. I'm okay with adding, but not limited to, as Supervisor Green suggested. And it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, Vice Chair, that you said it was unnecessary to make that change as you first offered?
Yeah, I was talking about adding, but then I realized you can just kind of emphasize how important some of that was that I mentioned if we just, I don't know, jumble some words or just add a sentence in the explanation saying this will help with water resiliency. If vegetation clearing in the streams, that also supports the hitch that you mentioned, and clearing for, not just for, hazardous vegetation, but then in the stream beds as well.
So this is the starting point, because we've not had lobbyists before, and we don't have a legislative platform, and we don't have our strategic plan, and so those are all the things that we're working towards, and so this is the starting place. And we've never been here before, and this is really exciting. And a lot of these, it sounds like there's another meeting on Friday with the two of you, that we had the meeting last week, so we all have a chance to sit down with them and discuss the priorities. But I think this is written in a way that it encompasses everything that we're asking for, just to get the ball started. And then we can work in progress.
Always, every day. Any other comments? And are we looking for a motion to approve the priorities as suggested?
Well, do we have to give them a resolution? So are we approving it today and then coming back with a resolution? Is that what they wanted?
I thought the resolution was the platform.
Yeah, they haven't asked for a resolution.
Okay.
And this would just give a starting place.
Direction.
So
This
if
is the
you-
board direction.
If you wanted to adopt the priorities essentially as written, then that can allow them to get started.
Okay.
And we're having those meetings, as you noted, coming up here, and it is a living document, so it may be brought back for adjustments over time.
Great.
I'd like to entertain a motion in order to get the board's approval on this.
It would be a motion to approve the document.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And with that, we have reached wonderful item number 10. We are adjourned. Thank you. Oh, actually, I really apologize. I did not take public comment for the end of item 7, 8, or 9, and so I will just, there is a hand from Betsy Kahn. I'm going to ask Betsy if we can unmute her. Is this for item number 9?
This is for your water reliability issues.
So this is for item number 9, so we're still kind of on there, other than the motion has already moved, but let's open up for public comment.
Well, this isn't necessarily a recommended change. I just want to suggest to you that the county should attempt to create a Scotts Valley watershed restoration project of the scope and scale of the Middle Creek watershed project, since it contributes about half of that pollution to the pollution sediment to the lake, and there are so many related problems. Every one of you have touched on some of these issues, and there's a lot of material that would support the development of such a project. Just offering that to you. Thanks.
Appreciate the comment, and I'm sure it's noted by Supervisor Green. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betsy.
And no further hands up for public comments. The room has been deserted, so there's nobody in the chambers, and so therefore we move on to item number 10, and we will be adjourned. Thank you for your attention today, and thank you to staff. I do want to mention that without saying all of the items that we had before us to discuss everything that the county is working on, it takes the entire staff, not just the department heads that presented or us here at the board that says yay or nay. Truly appreciate all the hard work that goes into everything that happens here at the county, and couldn't be more thankful than to witness all of that is happening. So thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.